bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
All right, welcome. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. That's right. How you doing, everybody? Today is Tuesday, February 7th. 38 days into the new year, just 327 days left, and I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? Got a great show tonight. I'm all excited. We've got Dave Schrader here, host of Beyond the Darkness. Darkness Radio comes to Fade to Black. I've been waiting for this for a long time. Dave Schrader is with us tomorrow night. Special Fader night with John Rappaport, and special guest George Norrie is going to be here. So, wow, we've got Schrader tonight, Norrie tomorrow. Thursday, we're going to do a best of replay, everybody. We're taking the night off because we're going to pack up. We're heading out of town because Friday is our live special event from the Conscious Life Expo at the LAX Hilton. We'll see everybody there. And don't forget to get your live stream if you can't hang out with us in Los Angeles at the LAX Hilton. Get the live stream, and the links for that and everything you need to know is over at jimmychurchradio.com. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio, Facebook, YouTube. Everything is Fade to Black, Jimmy Church Radio. You know what to do. Follow, like, and subscribe. Just go to the website, click on the links. It's all right there. You can email throughout the show tonight, Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. I just hit the cough button. Yeah, I did. That's what that was. I'll get to as many emails as I can throughout the show, Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. The sandbox for Twitter, everybody, is hashtag F2B. Any questions for myself or Mr. Schrader tonight? Just use hashtag F2BQ. As you know, all of the, is that Three Amigos? That's pretty cool. Man, I love Twitter. Twitter and this show, they go together, man. That's like Oreos and milk, man. Original Oreos and milk, not the double stuff. Double stuff is good, though. Don't get me on that rant. Any questions or comments, do use hashtag F2BQ. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. You know, everything that we do on this show is free, right? It's free. Broadcast is free. YouTube, everything out there is just free, free, free. That's what we do here. But we have the podcast for those that can't be here for the live show. Right? They're somewhere around the world or the other part of the United States. They got to get up at 4 a.m. and go to work, and they can't stay up all night listening to this show. So they have the podcast. I get that. And we would do the podcast for free, too, if we could. But we can't. We just can't do it. Have to pay for the apps and the Apple Store and, you know, all that stuff. Man, the Apple Store costs money, man. We have a free, check this out. We have a free download on the Apple Store. And I wouldn't even tell you what it cost us per year to have a free download. And we have to get an Apple license. It's crazy. Anyway, it's just $2 a month. That's all it is, $2 a month. And you get over 600 archive shows. What a better deal. There isn't one anywhere. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the podcast banner. You can go to iTunes, go to Google. All the apps are there. Apple, Android, Kindle. I forget what else, but everything, all the platforms are supported there. Anything that you need. Any device, we have an app for it. All right. And do visit all of our sponsors. Click on their banners over at jimmychurchradio.com. Use the promo codes right there in the banners for discounts and free shipping. That's right. Now, this Friday, we are going to be at the Conscious Life Expo. It is February 10th through the 13th at the LAX Hilton right here in Los Angeles, California. Tickets, info, live stream, everything you need is over at jimmychurchradio.com. We'll see all of you there. Now, oh, man, see, that's why I hit the cough button, because right there I didn't hit it in time. That's why a cough button is needed, right? It's no joke. I apologize for that. Contact in the Desert coming up May 19th through the 22nd in Joshua Tree, California. And one of the biggest events of the season, the two big events of the year, the two big ones, Conscious Life Expo, Contact in the Desert. We love both conferences, all right? And same thing for us over at Contact in the Desert. We're broadcasting live on Friday night, be hosting panels and introducing people all weekend long. Big, huge event. And all of your lodging needs and everything that you need at all is over at jimmychurchradio.com. Just click on the banner. Let's get this show cracking right now. Happy birthday to Chris Rock. Today is 52. Whatever happened to Chris Rock? Man, he's going to come off the birth. I love Chris Rock, but I think the dude kind of took his money and run. James Spader today is 57, and I love that show, The Blacklist. It's amazing. Our dead guy's birthday today. I'm going to do it. Miguel Ferrer, 1955 to 2017. Miguel died 2 weeks ago here in Los Angeles, California. He's one of my favorite actors, one of Rita's. And he was a pretty good drummer, too, by the way. His films include, of course, RoboCop, Point of No Return, Hot Shots Part 2, Justice League of America, Mulan, Traffic, The Manchurian Candidate, Iron Man 3. Television included Twin Peaks, NCIS Los Angeles, The Protector, and Crossing Jordan. Oh, man. Just a bummer. He died of throat cancer. Died of throat cancer right here in Los Angeles. He was the oldest of 5 children of the Academy Award-winning actor Jose Ferrer, who was absolutely amazing. And his mom was one of the greatest singers in history, Rosemary Clooney. And he's also was the cousin of George Clooney. And happy birthday. Miguel passed away 2 weeks ago. Wow. Anyway, OTD on this day. Really? Rita said there's no CITD banners on the website. I thought there was. So there you go. We'll get banners up to CITD. Thank you, Rita. You should have said that yesterday or the day before. I wouldn't have done it today. But OTD, on this day in history, 1984. While in orbit. Now, check this out. Listen to this. In 1984, while in orbit 170 miles above the Earth, Navy Captain Bruce McCandless becomes the first human being to fly untethered in space when he exits the Space Shuttle Challenger. And he maneuvers freely using a rocket pack of his own design. But there's more to this. Just listen. McCandless orbited the Earth next to the shuttle, at speeds greater than 17,500 miles per hour and flew up to 320 feet away from the Challenger, untethered. How crazy, how nutbag crazy is that? After an hour and a half of testing and flying the jet-powered backpack, and admiring Earth, McCandless just cruised back to the shuttle and got on board and was safe. That's one of the craziest stories I can relate to you, and it happened on this day in 1984. I can't imagine. What do you say in the spacesuit? Woohoo! You know, just 17,000 miles an hour by yourself with a jetpack. Captain Bruce McCandless, man. Here's a hero for you right there. Fader fact. The Empire State Building generates more revenue from the observation deck than all of the commercial tenants in the remaining 101 floors combined. That is a Fader fact. All right. Tonight is Dave Schrader, host of Beyond the Darkness Radio, co-host along with myself over at Coast to Coast AM. Tomorrow night is a special Fader night with John Rappaport. He's going to be here, and our special guest will be George Norrie. So, in 2 days, you got 3 Coast to Coast dudes. Yeah, that's pretty cool right here on Fade to Black. Friday night, we'll be over at the Conscious Life Expo with our very special live event. All right. Well, one of the coolest things that happened right before the first of the year, or maybe it was right after, was the Dakota Pipeline and Obama saying the Army Corps of Engineers are going to get their permits revoked, right? And the pipeline was stopped, right? The protesters win. Well, the Army Corps of Engineers today has said it will now approve a permit to allow for the completion of the Dakota Access Pipeline. As you know, President Trump last week signed an executive order saying that's it. He wants everybody to comply and get this pipeline done. That was the executive order. And everybody was bummed out. And the protests were going to continue and so forth. Well, after months of these protests by Native Americans and their supporters, the United States Army Corps of Engineers, which has approval authority, by the way, had under the Obama administration put the plans on hold pending further environmental review. Sounds good, right? But President Donald Trump has supported the 1,172-mile oil pipeline, said he was going to do it, and he did. And this thing was, it's going to snake through 4 U.S. states. And he ordered last week everybody to reconsider. It was an order. I've done a lot of investigation on the Dakota Pipeline. A lot. More on that in just a bit. But the Army said in a statement, and I'm quoting here, today, the Department of the Army announced that it has completed a presidential directed review of the remaining easement requests for the Dakota Access Pipeline and has notified Congress that it intends to grant an easement for right-of-way across government land at Lake Ohi Dam and Reservoir in North Dakota. Now, this is the deal. An easement. What is an easement? Well, I'm just going to tell it to you straight. I'm going to give you the Jimmy Church version. An easement is when the government says, we're going to go through land and there's nothing you can do about it. That's an easement. The Army said that the approval will facilitate completion, I'm quoting here, of the last stretch of the pipeline connecting the Bakken and Three Forks oil production areas in North Dakota to an existing crude oil terminal near Pacota, Illinois. Thousands of protesters have camped in freezing weather temperatures to block the pipeline's planned route, which the Standing Rock Sioux tribe says creates a risk of water pollution and endangers areas with sacred historic sites and artifacts. Well, as we know, the standoff, which included some 2,000 military veterans who joined the protest late in the protest, set off violent clashes with law enforcement as well as sympathetic demonstrations nationwide, water cannons, craziness. Jan Hasselman, an attorney at the environmental organization Earth Justice, which is representing the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, said in a statement that the Obama administration had correctly sought to address the tribe's concerns and that further study of the pipeline route was needed. Now, through my investigations, I found out a couple of things about the pipeline that are interesting and also unanswered questions. One, the pipeline basically is underground. All right, underground. All of the jobs that would be created for this, right, for building this pipeline, the creation of jobs, and I pulled numbers today, and I went all over the place trying to find the positive side of this pipeline, right, doing my best. And 60. Well, I saw one that was 40. 40 jobs were going to be, 4 permanent jobs were going to be created. 60 permanent jobs. That's a 6 and a 0 on the high side, with 2,000 temporary jobs. That's it. All right, pipelines can be completed, the temporary jobs are over, and then you've got 60 permanent full-time jobs for this pipeline that's going to create, billions of dollars in profit. Billions of dollars in profit. So I don't understand that part. I'm trying to see the benefit for the United States. I'm just trying to do my best here. That's all. Well, I'm not a Trump guy. I'm when it comes to politics, when am I? Asexual. I don't really care. It just doesn't matter to me. But Trump is supposed to be America first, right? At least that's what I think I've heard repeatedly. And again, I'm not Trump bashing here. I'm pipeline concerned. Obama wanted some more environmental checks, and there were some protests that were going down. And just signing away without any further environmental testing and just signing away on this within an executive order just didn't quite sit right with me. I thought that, just out of respect, is this a money decision for your pals at Big Oil? Or is there no environmental concerns and Obama was out of line? I don't know. But I think there should be some respect there. The more I look at the pipeline, the more it just doesn't make any sense. Okay? Now, before you say, Jimmy, you're pro-pipeline or you're liberal or you're right-wing or you're Trump, just listen to what I have to say. That's all. Just draw your own conclusions. Because what is not clear, and I have read everything that I could find until my eyes were burning, is what's going to be done with the oil. That's the question. Let's not forget, they're building a pipeline that has oil running through it. So, what is the oil for? Who benefits from this oil? Is it America first? Is it us? Is it us here in America? The United States. Right? The pipeline, and this is what I found. The pipeline will definitely terminate in the Patoka, Illinois township, which is a small, very small town with a very large oil tank farm. Right? It's just east of St. Louis. Population 584. Go look it up. And you should see this oil tank farm from Google Earth, by the way. You could probably see that thing from space. Anyway, 584, population 584. Obviously, there's somebody in this town that's going to profit from this, and maybe there'll be some additional employment. I don't know. It's not in the numbers. But I would think that the town has got something going on here, right? Okay, good for them. So there's something positive, I suppose. But it's an oil tank farm. The pipeline terminates there, and they're filling up tanks. No refineries, nothing is going on. So where does the oil go from there? That's why they're building the pipeline, right? From there, the oil will head south to the Gulf of Mexico. Now, from there, the trail ends. I have read everything on the company websites, right? TransPartners, I've read everything there. I've read everything that is in social media. I've read all of the protest websites. I've danced around on different media, right, left, alt, crazy, whatever, everything, trying to find out where this oil is going. There's nothing. Nobody's talking about it. There's little snippets here and there, but nothing concrete. Now, I would think that if the oil is to be refined, turned into gasoline, and then sold and used in the United States, that fact would be out there in the press, in the media. This would be their thing, stating that the pipeline would help reduce our oil imports. Let me tell you something. If that was indeed the case, don't you think that that's exactly what Big Oil would be saying right now? It's 500,000 barrels a day that is going through this pipeline. That is an awful lot of oil production. Think about it. So why aren't they saying just that? Hey, we understand the environmental risk. We understand. But look, this is for us. This is for America. We're going to stop our dependence on imported oil. And this is going to be refined into gasoline for you, for me, for us, for your children. Lower gas prices, everything. It benefits us all. Right? But that ain't out there. And I find that curious. And so should you. Or, and I stress, so that's possibility number one. Or, and I do stress or here, I really mean that, is the oil slated to go on tankers and exported in the Gulf of Mexico? Exported out of the United States. And if that is the case, then it would be the exact opposite of America first, right? I mean, am I wrong here? I don't think so, but am I wrong? I'm trying to figure this thing out. Because if it's just oil being exported on tankers, nobody benefits in the United States except for Big Oil. And those shareholders, they're just selling the oil that was brought out of the ground here and pipelined out to the Gulf of Mexico and sent on tankers and exported. That ain't cool. Everything that I have read from both sides of the fence is completely vague in this area. I can't get my head around it. I did read something about one of the benefits of the pipeline was that it would relieve the dependence on oil being transported by rail car. So I said, that's interesting. So they're going to build this pipeline across 4 states underground, run 500,000 barrels of oil a day through that is brought out of the ground a day to the oil tank field, right, in Patoka, Illinois. Now that sounds like a pretty good benefit, right? Okay, I could see that. Wasted energy with a train, which trains are cheap to run on anyway, but nonetheless. So I go and I check that out. And I find out that the latest numbers, the latest official numbers is this. Out of the Northwest and out of Dakotas, there hasn't been any oil transported by train in years. There is no data available. But yet, on the TransPartners website, they literally state that it would be saving up to 250 rail cars a day. Well, but they're not doing that. There isn't an infrastructure to do it. Isn't that interesting? So we've got a blatant lie there. It sounds good. It really does. And then they bring up this, that the truckers, right? All the wasted gas that we're using transporting oil by truck would be saved. Again, sounds good. The energy saved by doing that makes a lot of sense. But there's another problem with that. The truckers are out of work. I thought this was America first. So, if we're going to take the truckers out of the play, right, and we're going to take the non-existent trains out of the way, and we're going to bring 500,000 barrels of oil out of the ground, it better stay here in the United States. I mean, where is the oil really going? That's the question, and that is the question that I am raising. If it get exported, the only real benefit is the big oil companies. America won't be first, it'll be last. So I'm asking all of you, Fadernauts, do some work for me. Investigate this. Let's see if we can find out where this oil is going. And I'll say this. If it's staying here in the United States, it's being refined in the Gulf of Mexico and not put on tankers, and it stays here and it goes into American gas stations, into American vehicles, and the price of gas comes down and our dependence on foreign oil is decreased. If all of that, those are all big benefits here. It doesn't okay what happened with the tribes and the sacred land. It does not. The environmental studies being nullified. It does not. But I'll tell you what, it takes the sting out of it if at least those Indians can get some gas. And we can benefit and our children can benefit. Because if it's getting exported out of the United States and big oil is the only one making the money, that is an official outrage. So that's the question. Where's the oil going? I need your help. I think there's a conspiracy here. And it's a big one. And whenever there's a big conspiracy, it just seems like, I don't care if it's UFOs or the Fed, big oil is behind it. And with that, I'm going to get out of here because I'm going to get Dave Schrader in here, the one and only. Darkness Dave is here tonight on Fade to Black. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You can follow Dave, Darkness Radio, Beyond the Darkness Radio. You can follow Dave also at Dave Schrader on Twitter. I think he's here. I think he's hanging out in Twitter tonight. I'll be right back. This is Fade to Black. I'm your Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hi, folks. In a world of GMO, genetically modified organisms, that is, chemicals, processed foods, and a healthcare system that's unraveling like a cheap suit, it's time to prepare. God created herbs, and herbs help man. Our body can heal itself, just sometimes we need assistance. You need some help? GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Our mild detox is quite powerful with its unique blend of 8 different herbs. And if you're looking for more, our non-GMO supplements will help you with different needs you might have. Health should be a top priority. Take care of your health naturally. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Give your body a treat. Let the herbs do their thing naturally. Read all the testimonies on the website. GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Sickness and viruses are like intruders, and herbs are like warriors. Let the tea work for you. That's GetTheTea.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Chase Klutsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station where the Fadernauts rock.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You follow Dave Schrader at Dave Schrader. Beyond the Darkness Radio. I think it's Beyond Dark. Beyond the Dark on Twitter. I say that because, Twitter, you can have your account and then you have a different name, right? So I'm just confused. But if you use Dave Schrader or Beyond Darkness, they'll both pop up. Confused. Dave is the best at doing that. Dave, welcome to the program. Dave Schrader is the host of the long-running paranormal talk show Darkness Radio. Now heads up Beyond the Darkness, part of the Jericho Networks on podcast1.com. Can be heard as a regular fill-in host along with yours truly over at Coast to Coast AM. Dave has lived a life immersed in the paranormal, from ghostly visitations to growing up in a haunted house. Bigfoot sightings, and UFO encounters. He seems to always find the right place at the right time. His overwhelming fear of death keeps him constantly seeking answers and trying to understand his place in the universe and in the afterlife. I've been looking forward to this for a very long time, and I don't know why we've waited this long. Dave, welcome to the program. Welcome to Fade to Black.
I like to play hard to get, Jimmy. I've got to be honest with you.
And you're doing a damn fine job, Dave. And you know what? You know what I get to do with you right now?
What's that?
Is I get to do the first-time guest disclaimer.
Okay.
With Dave Schrader, which is, Dave, it's just you and me sitting on my couch, talking. Where we start, where we end, but we'll end as friends. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Schrader. Man, okay. What's great about this is that for our audiences, for both of us, they get to hear the two of us at the same time, and that's pretty cool. That doesn't happen too often out there. I've been following you for a long time, and it's been vice versa for sure. But you've been doing this for a very long time, and I'm going to do the host-to-host softball right now, underarm pitch. Okay.
Okay.
This darkness thing for you, was it your family? Was it the way that you grew up? Was it the haunted house? Was it your mom? Who's to blame, and how did this get started?
That's a great question. I can't say I was into the paranormal. The paranormal seemed to be into me. I had visitations from my grandmother after she passed when I was about 2.5, 3 years old. Just growing up in a haunted house, being, like I said in the beginning, being in the right place at the right time for most of my life. I've had a chance to be kind of surrounded by this, and certainly hearing the stories, because I have no memory of seeing my grandmother when I was that young. My mom and aunt would recount these stories to me, and then my aunt had 3 phone calls from my grandmother after she died. So to have these kind of experiences around me, and then, there was always the scary books laying around. Mom loved to read about the paranormal and the Amityville Horror and Hans Holzer and D. Scott Rogo and the Warrens, and she had books like that all the time around the house, as did my aunt. So I would always have this stuff around to look at and flip through, and I loved shows like In Search Of and Unexplained Mysteries and all of that growing up. So it just, it seems like when you keep immersing yourself into it, the more it attracts to you.
Man, the first time you heard the Warrens, did you just get freaked out of your mind?
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
seriously. Course. Yeah. I mean, I was on a show the other day, a podcast, Beyond the Strange, and we were talking about the old days of Art Bell. And I remember pulling in my garage here in Los Angeles, listening to the Warrens, right? I mean, I was riveted. This is it's probably 93 or something, 94. And I sat in my car for a couple of hours. I didn't want to get out of my car and waste the 2 minutes it would take to get upstairs and fire up the AM radio. I didn't want to miss anything. And I just love those paranormal shows. And is that what drives you with Beyond the Darkness?
Yeah, I'm constantly seeking answers. And like you, I didn't have radios in my house as an adult. I did when I was a kid. I lived by radio and wanted to do radio. But I didn't have the radio in the house. So I would be driving home somewhere and I'd hear Art Bell interviewing Dr. Barry Taff about the entity case and about the San Pedro haunting. And I remember sitting in my car for 3 hours because I got home as the show started and I couldn't get out of the car.
Exactly.
And then to hear shows like that continue with George Norrie, and there were times I'd find myself sitting in the car for 2 hours at a crack, and I'm like, what am I doing? Get a radio inside, for God's sakes. But I love those topics. And, you know, that was kind of a really neat point to be able to listen to Art Bell, listen to him talk about to Dr. Barry Taff. And that's the first episode I ever really remember sticking with me because it creeped me out so much. And then getting to fill in for George from time to time, and then getting to have Dr. Barry Taff as my guest on Coast to Coast. That was a really very cool kind of cyclical moment for me to be doing that. And, you know, I'm just fascinated by all of it, the scary stuff, the science of it, and sometimes just the legend, which seems to grow year after year.
Before we get into ghosts and the paranormal, how did you get the gig over at Coast?
You know, that's a great question. I don't know for sure. I was doing live events with Darkness Radio, where we would go out and we'd visit places like the Stanley Hotel, Waverly Hills Sanitarium, Rolling Hills. And we were doing, I think it was about 5-6 years ago, I decided to kind of wrap up doing these large scale events because I was on the road every month and I was away from my kids a lot. So I decided to kind of temper it back. And one of the last events I posted, I sent out this mass email that said, you know, join us at our final Eastern State Penitentiary event. And Tom Danheiser and George wrote, and they said, oh, why is this your final one? And I didn't even know they knew who I was. I didn't realize I was even a blip on their screen.
Right.
And I told them I just want to spend some more time at home with my kids. And you know, I've kind of been there, seen all these places now. I want to take a break. And they said, well, we'd love to be a part of it. You know, I'd love to come on out. So we brought George out for our final Eastern State Penitentiary event and had a chance to hang out and do a little ghost hunting and talk and just be around each other. And then I don't think it was maybe less than 9 months later or so, an opportunity arose and they said, hey, would you like to fill in for John B. Wells? And I said, sure. And John and I hit it off and he let me kind of sub for him for a while until he parted ways with Coast to Coast AM. And then the rest is, you know, the kind of cyclical nature of, you know, weaving between you, Richard Sirrett, Connie Willis, Lisa Garr, kind of rotating all of these different hosts and their different approaches through Coast. And I think they just like that flavor, that, you know, that kind of spice from every different angle from all of us, bringing something to the show that we're passionate about.
Yeah, they brought me in the doofus, you know, to bring the doofus angle. But, you know, it kind of was the same way for me. You're the guest on the show right now. I'm not going to waste time with my stories. But George, just one night, like 3 years ago, maybe even 4 years ago, called in to Fade to Black, right? And the funny thing was, I had Jason Martell on, right? And
right.
And I keep getting this phone call, and it's an 818 number, and we're in Burbank, you know, and it's a local call. I'm like, who keeps calling? And Jason and I had said before the show, no phone calls tonight. Let's just hang out and talk. All right, cool. And this phone call keeps coming. And I said, Jason, keep getting this 818 number, man. Should we pick it up? And he goes, yeah. So I had the call on hold for like 15 minutes, and so I'm like, oh, welcome to Fade to Black. Who's calling? Hey, Jimmy, it's George. And I go, George who? It's George Norrie. And Jason goes, Jimmy, it's George, man. Don't you know his voice? I go, it's somebody imitating George. No, right. It's me. And that's how it started. You know, he became a fan of the show and would listen. And that's just the weirdest thing, you know, be careful what you wish for, right? So
right, exactly. And he was kind enough to extend me the invitation before I ever hosted. I was a guest on his show talking about all the weird aspects of the paranormal. And, you know, I visited him a couple times doing that. And, you know, I went out to Romania with Joshua P. Warren to investigate, you know, the trail of Dracula, Vlad Tepes, and find out the history and mysteries of that storyline. And we did a little report after that, having had some weird experiences out in Romania. So it was kind of a unique opportunity to do this. And boy, then to get the chance to sit in the big boy seat, it just I love doing it, and I'm blown away by it every time I say goodnight. I just feel like, oh my God, I just did Coast to Coast AM.
Yeah.
This is nuts. You know, you want to tell all your friends and family, and by this time should be like a seasoned NFL player. You know, don't over celebrate, because act like you should be there, and it's hard not to still want to celebrate at the end of every episode.
You know, I treat everyone as an event, man, because it could be your last, right?
Exactly.
So you just don't know. But yeah, you're right. Every night I sign off because I do it from George's studio, right?
Right.
So I have that privilege. But one of the cool things, and trip on this, you know, from one host to another, is I get to use the Coast to Coast phone, right? So there it is, right? East of the Rockies, right?
The bat phone's right in front of you.
Yeah,
right.
The phone, you know, with all the labels on it. And every night when I sign off, I just take a look at that and I go, man, it just doesn't get any better than this. And I appreciate it every time it happens. It's pretty cool. All right.
I know, as corny as it is, yeah, when we first did the show, and Tim, my co-host and producer on Darkness Radio and Beyond the Darkness, when we first did Coast that time, there was no thrill greater, I guess, than hearing that, to call Dave Schrader, dial east of the Rockies. And you're like, holy crap, that's me.
I'll tell you something funny. I don't know if you know this. One night, I don't know, Friday, Saturday night. So, you know, we're doing our things, and we're in a break, and we come off of the break, and this is what happens. I'm hosting. To call Dave Schrader, dial. And I was like, what? And they ran there. I was like, there's the respect right there that I get. Oh, that was just too funny.
I had to pay extra for that to happen, Jimmy. I want you to know that.
Just like, man, Dave. Oh, man. I wanted to ask you this really quick. Sure. You've done so many shows now, and Darkness ran. I do actually want to talk about what happened with the end of Darkness, too.
Sure.
And we'll get to that in just a second. But, you know, 9 years with Darkness, a couple of years now under your belt with Coast. Who's your favorite guest?
Actually, we did 11 years. We just crossed 11 years with Darkness Radio on January 1st.
There you go. There you go.
And, boy, our favorite guest, that's so hard to say. I mean, it's like picking your favorite kid. Over 11 years, I've spoken to so many great people. I think my first biggest thrill was Dan Aykroyd when he was out with his DVD, Dan Aykroyd Unplugged on UFOs.
Right, the Dave Schrader. Yeah.
Yeah, and I loved, I mean, he was sitting at a campfire in Canada talking to me from a fire, just shooting the breeze. And it was so interesting. And what I liked about it made me laugh at the time. He railroaded me the entire show. I think I got out 3 or 4 questions in an hour. And we went commercial free that hour because our boss was so blown away that we got Dan Aykroyd on the show in our first 6 months. So we went commercial free. And I think Dan was so worried I was going to start talking about Ghostbusters and Coneheads and John Belushi. So he really tried to keep it on task, but I never strayed. I never got the chance. And then when he and his father were doing a little bit of a book tour because his father wrote a book all about the paranormal, I reached out again, and they said, yeah, Dan would love to do the show and he'd love to bring his dad. I said, let's do this. So that was a really big kind of thrill, because here's a guy I loved watching growing up on TV and fascinated, and the guy's brain just works in an amazing way, and he's so hyper intelligent. So to get a chance to talk with him and his father about the paranormal and just wrap around, that'll go down as one of my all-time favorites. And then going back to the Warrens, I spoke to Lorraine on we did an interview with her. And I guess that would be probably, I think it was around 6 or 8 months before Ed passed finally. He was at home on a respirator or on whatever he was on, but he was in a coma state at home. And I just had the sweetest talk. I really didn't even dip too much into the paranormal with Lorraine. It was kind of a When Harry Met Sally interview. Tell me about how you and Ed came together. How did this work? What was it like? And it was just, she was so sweet. And after the show, she said, I've been doing these things for a long time, and you asked me questions nobody's ever asked me. She was that you cared enough about what the dynamic was between Ed and I, and it wasn't just about, tell me about Amityville, tell me about this, tell me about that. She loved it and was so kind, and we've enjoyed talking to her over the years. So she'll always go down as one of my favorites as well.
And with Darkness, which, okay, well, actually, I want to talk about Darkness. Let's talk about the ending of Darkness. I watched your video the day that it was released. And I know that your audience, you were trying to, now I'm going to put words in your mouth a little bit here.
Okay.
But I know that your audience was concerned and you were trying to meet the concern. But the other part for me was, this sucks, right? And you've got to make the best of what life brings you. But the disappointment was there in your face, and you want your audience to know that you're okay, right?
Right.
There was that part of it too as well, but it was also a message of one door closing and another one opening. What actually happened?
Well, it was strange. We've been on a political talk station in Minneapolis on KTLK for 8 years of our 11 years on the air, 8.5 years. And it got to the point, we were kind of the redheaded stepchild of the network. They didn't really promote us. They didn't cross promote us. There was really just nothing there to grow what we were building. And we wanted to start to find new, fresh ways to do that. And Chris Jericho, the wrestler, is a huge fan of our show and reached out and, he told us how much he enjoyed the show, loves the paranormal. He would do little paranormal episodes. And then he admitted that he's going to do this Jericho network as part of Podcast One. And he's going to pull together these shows under his umbrella. And Tim reached out to him and said, well, how about bringing Part of Darkness over there? And we could do like a 1 hour podcast a week. It'll bring over new listeners to our show, and our show will bring new listeners to your network. And he was all for it. And our station was kind of like, well, you know what, maybe you're better suited doing paranormal over there, and we'll just stick with political talk radio over here. And we had a great relationship. And had I not been there, I wouldn't have gotten the opportunity to host Coast to Coast and fill in like I did. So that was, that definitely helped because Coast was on right after our show. So literally there were a couple episodes of Coast to Coast I hosted where I did our 3-hour show from 9 to midnight. I'd sign off, and then 10 seconds later, my mic would go live, and I'd be ready to do Coast to Coast AM. So I'd be on for 7 to 8 hours in the night doing the show. Ouch. But I loved it. That right. was cool. And then this opportunity came up that, we talked with Podcast One, and they were like, we're not really a 5-day-a-week channel. We don't really do this, and we certainly don't want a 3-hour a night show. And, I said, well, I don't want to let Darkness Radio cool. If we leave it out too long, people are going to just forget about it. And he said, well, I'll tell you what. And this was funny. He goes, I'll tell you what. Hey, just have some of your listeners write in so I can bring it to the bosses, and maybe we can give you an extra night or two. And we did that. I think it was on a Monday. And I put out on all the social media pages, hey, if you want more darkness, just email info@podcastone.com. And let them know you want more Darkness Radio. And within a couple hours, I got a call, and they're like, go call the dogs off. He goes, Dave, I expected we'd get 20 to 30 emails. He goes, I got 150 in the first hour. We're at 750 and stopped counting right now.
Right on.
Just tell them to stop. And I didn't tell them to stop. And the next day, we were blowing them away. They're just like, this is nuts. And then he said, all right, I'll tell you what. You've got 102 reviews of your new show, Beyond the Darkness, over on iTunes. If you can get people to subscribe and start pumping that up and putting in ratings and reviews, that'll help our story to try to build you up as well. So I threw that out on Tuesday, and we went from 102 ratings to 560 ratings in a 24-hour span.
Wow.
And and Podcast One said, okay, we heard you. And they came back, and it was funny. Our producer says, listen, I went to bat for you, and I have bad news and good news. Bad news is we're not going to bring you 5 nights a week, 3 hours a night. We're just not going to do that. It's not heard of. We're just not in that place. But we want you 5 days a week, 90 minutes a day, 60 to 90 minute shows. Let's do that and let it build from there. So it was a great progression for us. And where a lot of people felt sad, I felt more sad for the listeners because people don't like change. And, it was weird to kind of tuck one child in as a new one was being born and say not goodbye to Darkness Radio, but know that part of the story is closing and we're continuing on. We're still Darkness Radio presents Beyond the Darkness. And we're still doing what we've done for 11 years. We're just doing it in a new platform. And to be truthful, we're getting much more response from this than I ever got doing it on radio. It's great immediate response. I get to actually see what the ratings are.
Right.
and we get kept in the loop. So that, I've been very happy with the change. And so is Tim, and our listeners seem to be adapting to it pretty quickly.
Well, 90 minutes, you can do that standing on your head.
Right. But you know what's nice about it, Jimmy, and you know this, right? You get a show like Coast to Coast and you get a guest in, and sometimes you got a great guest and they've written this book that's, 500 pages long, and you're 15 minutes into the interview and you're like, what the hell am I going to ask them? They're giving you one-word answers. They don't seem prepared on their own material. And suddenly 3 hours feels like 8 hours.
Right.
90 minutes, 60 to 90 minutes gives you a lot of freedom to really get to the meat of the story right away. Have some fun with it, dig deep, and then get out. So you leave people wanting more. And I'm really digging on that. Plus, it's the first time in 11 years I've been home and able to go to bed at 10 o'clock at night instead of 2 o'clock in the morning. Then I have to be up at 6 with my kids to get them ready for school. So it's a definite blessing for me.
Yeah, and it's strange for me too, because with Fade to Black, we do this live 3 hours a night, and I have a certain flexibility, and I have my own style. And then when I go over to Coast, I have to adapt to that. I also have to tone it down, of course, too, as well. So there's that part of it. I don't use foul language on this show, and I try to, treat this show with respect. But what I mean is I have freedom of thought. I don't have to trip on, a station manager or the red phone ringing and me getting into trouble. So I've got that comfort zone here. But over at Coast, not only do you have the commercials, but you're absolutely right. There's you have to adapt the interview to such a way that you know that your guest is going to get the question finished before you hit the break. Right. And that is something that over here, man, we can wing it, we can go. I don't care if I interrupt a guest. And so forth. But it's definitely two different shows, and I have to deal with three faces of Eve, right?
I get a kick out of the fact that listeners will jump on me. They're like, I love you on Darkness Radio, but you get so stodgy when you're over at Coast to Coast. Why aren't you being funny and goofy? And I'm like, well, it's like being a guy that works at McDonald's and then you get asked to be the maitre d' at Chez Paul for the night. You don't go in there and be all, hey, everybody.
You can't do it.
You've got to go over there and show the same respect that the show deserves. And that's not the way George hosts a show, and that's not the way Art hosted it, or Ian Punnett, or George Knapp, or any of you. So you have to step up, and it's a different meter and template. But it doesn't mean, I still try to bring my personality through and do what we can on the show, but it's a different show. It's Coast to Coast. It's not Darkness Radio, darker radio. It's
right.
My chance to come out and do what I love to do. But I'll tell you what, I've earned a lot of listeners from Coast listeners that said, I'd never heard of you until I heard you on Coast, and now I listen to Coast and I listen to Darkness Radio, and I love both. And it's a great mixture because I can hear you be goofy Dave on Darkness Radio and then sincere when you need to be, and then I can hear you be more journalistic when you come on Coast to Coast. And so it gives a good, version of all of what we are instead of just a one-trick pony.
Well, I can tell one thing that you started to do this when I listened to you on Coast versus Darkness, and I'm doing the same thing. We're both, as we get more shows behind us, we're getting a little looser, right?
Right.
And I'm just afraid of the day that I just go too loose. I just take it, that one step a little bit too far, So I do have to dial it back, and you're absolutely right. You're more comfortable. Look, it's not our show, and most people don't realize that. Coast to Coast is a machine. It's been there, respected for over 20 years. That's a long run. 1992 to now. So if you think about this, we're not here to change the game. We're not here to make it us. We are the pinch hitters, man. We're just coming in to work for Coast, and that's different. But anyway, man, I hate.
But it's great to bring the different styles of interview too, right? I mean, you might get something from a guest totally different than I would have gotten, because I go down my wormhole. I want to dig into this angle of the story, and you might see the conspiratorial angle of the story, and George might see the entertainment angle of the story, and we each can do this interview with the same guest, and we get totally different interviews.
Yeah,
so that's what I've always thought was great too, and I think people are starting to catch on to that I don't have to be George Norrie. I don't have to be Jimmy Church. I don't have to be Art Bell. I can be Dave Schrader, and you're going to get this. And then if this guest returns, you're going to get a different version of the story from George or Jimmy or whoever's filling in that night.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right with that. And now let's talk about the other thing that's involved here, which is Beyond the Darkness. Now you can really let it hang out. You don't have any FCC regulation, so to speak.
Right.
So,
but, like you, I'm not I think in the first 15 episodes, I said a curse word that just slipped out, and it was nothing major, but it was the fact.
Dropped. I'm just going to bring him straight back in. Dave.
Yeah, I'm back here with you. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, that was weird. I just looked over and he went blip. Okay. Yeah. Back to darkness. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, I've got a little bit more freedom doing Beyond the Darkness, but like you, I also, I grew up loving radio, and I love talk radio, and I used to talk to the local radio hosts in Chicago where I grew up, and they would let me sit in and watch them do their craft. And even though I'm doing a podcast now I'm getting a huge audience from it, and it's a great hit, I also still treat it like I would, because I don't want to get in the habit of, effing this and SH that and BS that, and then you got to go do coast to coast, and, I don't want to uncork that genie. So I still try to keep it like it's a straight up terrestrial radio show, because that's the most respect for my listeners and my guests, and the fact I've got listeners of all ages, and a lot of families like to listen to what we do. So I don't want it to be this show where you've got to shield your kids' ears because my mouth is running amok. I mean, sometimes I'll get into uncomfortable conversations. And you're dealing with some weird topics, but it doesn't mean that, you can be disrespectful to it. So that's the only difference for me so far, is just a little bit more freedom and not having to worry so much about what we're doing, or like you said, even the politics of the conversation. I don't have to be as worried that I'm going to irritate the powers to be. I'm able to be who I want to be.
Now, when we're going to hit a break here in about 60 seconds, and so as we lead into that, when we come back, I want to talk about your ghost hunting, your techniques, your equipment, some of the events that you're out there doing. And you've also, you've been on Ghost Hunters. You've been, you've been hanging out with Taps forever. And you've been on Ghost Adventures with Zach. And, well, I don't know. You were on with Nick, too, when he was still on the show, right?
I was on Ghost Adventures numerous episodes.
Right.
I was on Paranormal State. I was on Paranormal Challenge. So I've had a chance to do quite a bit of the different shows out there.
Exactly. So I want to talk about all of that and what your techniques are, and and I want you to scare the crap out of me too when we come back. All right?
Sounds like a plan.
I know you got those stories. Our guest tonight, the one and only King of Darkness, Dave Schrader. Oh, by the way, so is it David or Dave? The world knows you as Dave.
Dave's not here, man.
That's what I'm talking about. Dave Schrader's our guest tonight. We'll be right back.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Oh, fall. My favorite time of year. Cooler temperatures and, well, let's be honest, layers. Lots and lots of layers. Look, I get it. We all have that favorite hoodie. Matter of fact, I've got a few favorite hoodies. You should wear yours. Enjoy it. I do. But I stay focused on my health year-round. And for me, I take Nature's Youth RSF from nature'syouth.com. Nature's Youth RSF from nature'syouth.com. I eat right, control my portion sizes, still maintain a commitment to regular fitness, and I get plenty of rest, and I take Nature's Youth RSF. It's okay to cover up your beach body for a few months, but don't just forget about it. Nature's Youth understands exactly what it means to provide top-quality health products, and Nature's Youth customers not only improve their health, they know they're also providing their body with the right nourishment to maintain peak performance levels and fight the aging process. So layer up and get started today with Nature's Youth RSF. nature'syouth.com. Simple to use, even simpler to order. Go to nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
right, welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Dave Schrader, host of Beyond the Darkness on the Jericho Network and podcast1.com. The links for everything are over at jimmychurchradio.com. This portion of the show is brought to you by River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. It's dark, it's complex, and it's smoky. Just go to the River Moon Coffee banner right now on our site. Use the promo code F2BBLEND, and you will get 15% off of your order. How cool is that, Dave? We have our own coffee, right?
That's pretty cool. Your own coffee. That's a boost. Sorry, I had a little coughing fit going on, so I muted my microphone.
Our own coffee. I mean, I still can't believe it, man. Every time I drink it, and it's made for us, and it's been dialed in, and I drink it, and I think to myself, man, this is exactly how I would want my coffee. Oh, wait, it is. It's pretty good.
Well, that's a good bolster for this time of night doing radio shows. So I would say that's a great blend, a nice darkness blend.
Yes, it is all that. All right, I want to talk gear. Okay. I want to talk gear. I was just I was at the NAMM show, and I was with one of the paranormal groups out there, and I was looking at their stuff. And it's mind-blowing what gets spread across these tables. And I'm just like, man, you guys, this is what we use. You must have amassed a pretty amazing collection of stuff. What do you use?
I've gotten... I was very heavy into the different equipment for a while, and then I'm starting to reel it back. My favorite pieces are really just an audio recorder.
Right.
And I have the SLS camera. That's the one that maps in so you can see the stick figures if it's mapping in a human frame.
Right.
And I've had some really wicked experiences with that. A lot of the other tools, I found some really big inherent flaws. The K2 meters and some of the other pieces of equipment, I just realized they're being used incorrectly because, let's face it, a lot of them saw it on TV and people are using it for that. And they don't realize what you're not seeing off air is that the guys calibrate their tools. They know how to use the tools. They have a better understanding of it. And we get a lot of crap from the skeptic world saying, you can't communicate with ghosts with a K2 meter or an EMF detector. Well, the idea was never meant to be to go in and prove that ghosts exist using this. It was always to go in and find reasonable, rational explanations for what these phenomena might be. You're laying in bed at night, you're paranoid, you have the sense that something's watching you, or around your bed you're getting that kind of foreboding feeling, and it happens all the time, and people start thinking they've got a demonic oppression going on. And we come in and use your EMF detector and realize that they've got an old 1970s clock radio next to their bed, and it's pouring EMF. And you unplug it, move it across the room, and suddenly they're sleeping better. They're not having those paranoid delusions anymore because they're not being bombarded by high levels of electromagnetic force. So that's what the tools were used for, to go in. And then, on TV, they want you to have a gadget in your hand, and they want you to look cool and lighty and blinky and buzzy. And that's kind of what I think has led that whole part of the investigation. But now there are guys like Bill Chappell. He's with digitaldowsing.com and creates most of the equipment you've seen on the paranormal shows.
Right.
And builds the SLS camera. I like the SLS camera. I like the audio. Because I'm an MTV generation guy, Jimmy. I want to do a recording and hear a response back and try to open up a communication and a dialogue. So EVP is the best route for me doing that. But I also like some of the older ways. I bring a bottle of baby powder with me on an investigation. And when I start feeling the cold breeze, I'll start pumping the baby powder into the air to see where the breeze is coming from and where it's going. And, lo and behold, it's not a ghost. It's a crack in the cement or a hole in a window, and you're able to find these things. So I think some of the old techniques are the best ways to investigate these claims.
What kind of a digital recorder do you use?
I'm not a big proponent of the expensive recorders. Now, when you get an EVP on an expensive recorder, holy cow. But for the most part, some of the new ones are built with all of this noise refining and all of these different characteristics to kind of remove the hiss and everything that we would normally hear that EVP laying in.
Right.
So I'm not a real fan of those, but I also understand that sometimes you'll hear those things and it sounds like a word, but it is not a word. And, I know you have to be extremely careful with that. So, that's it. I also loved using the Shack Hack, the radio box that would just kind of pan through different radio stations. And you and I both being in radio understand the inherent problem with that is you're going to hear snippets and bits and pieces, and people will ask, how many are in this room? What year is it? How old were you when you died? Well, as you're scanning through a radio at any time, you might be hearing, hey, it's 24 degrees, it's 7 minutes past the hour, and there's a three-car pile up on 694 heading to the 100 South Bridge. So those numbers are popping through the radio all the time. But what I've noticed in my recordings, when I do get something that seems out of the ordinary, it's above the sound of the radio. So when you're hearing the as it's passing through, and you'll hear the audio remnants from the radio, these voices almost sound like a CB the way they come through. And I did an investigation out at Lizzie Borden's house, and this was a very weird time. I had always wanted to go there. I went there to do an investigation with Jeff Belanger and some of our listeners, and went out there, and that was when I think it was Sandy hit. And I was stuck at the Lizzie Borden house for like 5 days because I couldn't get out.
Oh, shut up.
Yeah. So here I am alone in the Lizzie Borden house for a couple of nights, and you just start getting this weird, icky vibe. And I'm sleeping in the room where Mrs. Borden died, and I would not let a foot or a hand drop off the side of the bed for fear that something creepy is going to reach up and touch me.
Right.
And you'd think, you're a 6'1", 270-pound guy. What are you afraid of? But it just the mental acuity of it is what gets to you. So I was doing this investigation. Some people actually showed up, and the owner said, Dave, my people aren't here to lead the ghost hunt. I don't know what to do. I said, well, I'm here. I'll lead your ghost hunt. You're putting me up for a few days while this stupid storm is keeping me in town. So I was doing the investigation, and I had the radio scanning, and we're getting nothing. I mean, you're just literally getting hours of as it's scanning the channels. We're not even picking up remnants. And I put the recorder down on the floor right next to the radio, right where Mrs. Borden was murdered. And I say, we just would like some kind of confirmation that you're still here. Can you please tell me, what is your name? And clear as day, Jimmy, you hear the all of a sudden you hear this woman go, Abigail Borden.
Oh, shut. No,
just like she was the most irritated on the world. And we played it back, and we were floored by what we got. And it was so clear. It's just this very Abigail Borden.
I would have left the house. That's good enough for me.
See,
I saw
it. I love that stuff. I love that idea that there's that kind of thing going on around us at all times. And then I love how the evolution of the idea of ghosts has changed for me over the years, from 12 years ago to today, what I believe is a totally different animal. And I love trying to test those theories and push the boundaries and see what I can find when we go in. A lot of people will tell me, are you ever afraid? Well, any investigator that tells you, oh, I'm never afraid, that hard-ass nonsense is silly.
Right.
Of course, there are times we're afraid. You get into dark situations in a creepy old place, you're going to get unnerved. But I'm not walking around in a constant state of fear and panic. It's like going to the zoo and being blown away that you saw animals. I went to the paranormal place to look for some kind of interaction, and when I get it, it doesn't freak me out. But with that said, I've had 2 or 3 really chilling moments doing the investigations, and that's been enough to kind of unnerve me, but keep me going and wanting to find out more.
What do you think is going on with EVPs? Is it because these entities or these spirits, whatever they are electromagnetic in nature, and they just, get into electronic gear, whether it's an old cassette recorder or a digital recorder? They fester inside of the circuits and are able to manipulate in an electronic sense and then communicate. What's going on?
I wish I had more answers, Jimmy. And in some of those cases, the more you ask, the more answers you get, the more questions open up for you. I think that a lot of what we get when we use equipment, even EVP recorders and audio recorders, and I use a little Sony and a Kobe that I got, and those really seem to work well for me for getting EVP. But I think it's also your intent when you go in, and I use these 2 pieces over and over again. They work really well for me. Somebody will give me a new one, and I can't get any EVP off it at all, but I go back to my 1 or 2 standards, and I get something on them really clear. So I think it's kind of getting used to your equipment. But I often wonder how, like I was good friends with Mark and Debbie Constantino.
Oh, yeah.
Rest their souls.
Right.
And they were very proficient of getting EVP everywhere they went. And with inanimate objects, with anything. I mean, one of the weirdest EVP I ever heard was we were at Waverly Hills Sanitarium. We go into the morgue area, and everybody's sitting down, and Mark goes, okay, I'm going to start up my recorder, and he starts it up, and then he goes, okay, everybody, keep it down now. We want to start our recording. And when we play it back, just before Mark speaks, you hear this voice go, shh, they're going to try to record us.
Whoa.
And it was that clear.
Whoa.
And we were all like, what? And we were all sitting right there looking at each other. Nobody said that. Nobody whispered. But you heard this. But Mark and Debbie would get, they were very New York, and they were very in your face, and, very nice people to everyone else. But their EVP, they got a lot of really aggressive EVP. The FUs and the drop dead and get out of here and that kind of stuff. But that was also their personality. And you could almost watch them as they did their EVP. The more irritated or irritable they got as the night progressed, the more aggressive their EVP would be. And I began to wonder, if you've got two people doing this and they're so kind of in tune to this, are they imprinting on the equipment themselves an answer that they assumed would be the right answer?
Ooh.
Plus, you've got, in any case, 5 to 30 people standing around them
watching.
Yeah, and may know the story and may be focused on it as well.
Right.
So it often, because some of the EVP, they'd get the same voice at 6 different locations.
Oh, that's interesting. So it could have been completely manipulated from their own consciousness.
Right. Or if they have their own spirit guides that are with them, much like a medium. John Edwards will go up and he's talking to his mother, not your mother that passed away. He's talking to his mother, and his mother's relating the information she's getting from your mother.
Right.
So it could be that in this EVP, it's their spirit guide that's interpreting the messages that are coming through.
What is it about Waverly? I mean, look, it looks friggin' haunted, right? Okay,
Right.
so it's got that going for it, right?
Well, it used to look even creepier before Charlie and Tina put all that work into it.
Right.
Yeah.
What is it? What is going on there? That mortuary area it's right out of I'm trying to think of the video game. It doesn't
Silent Hill.
Yeah, Silent Hill, dude.
Right.
It's Silent Hill. It's that you're going to. I mean, it's haunted, right? It's just plain haunted.
Well, here's what I find really intriguing about this. And this is, again, where kind of my theory on ghosts has changed dramatically over the years. Whereas I believed, oh, my God, there were, 30, 40, 50,000 people that died in this building at one point.
Right.
So obviously there's going to be ghosts. Well, first of all, that kind of bothers me in itself. Why would a ghost hang around in a place where they spent the last years of their life maybe in brutal pain? Tuberculosis is not a fun thing to have.
Nope.
And it was painful and it was horrific. So why would they be haunting it? But I look at now, I'm starting to look at these things in a sense of time travel. So if you could picture a book, Jimmy, and the very final cover is the beginning of time, and the front cover is the end of time, okay? Where you're sitting right now doing this interview, that exact spot and location has existed in all space and time. It's always been there. It'll always be there.
Right.
Okay? And everything that happens is a page in that book, every experience. And kind of like in the old H.G. Wells movie, when he goes the Time Machine, you see him sitting there and he's in his machine and the buildings are falling down around him and then growing back up. And this is going on, dinosaurs, whatever. I think that a lot of that is we're really experiencing, is we're in this one space and all of these experiences have happened there. And once in a while, they just bleed through. Because what's fascinating to me is that there are so many claims from Waverly Hill Sanitarium where people will be investigating and they round the corner and there's the ghost of a nurse. And the nurse sees them and she turns and runs the other way. Why would a ghost run away from you, Jimmy?
I don't know. Well,
they're the ghost.
Right.
Right? They're the ones with the power. We know that from Hollywood. Right?
That's right.
But you flash back and it's, there were so many deaths there that they were always talking about how haunted it was and how the nurses and doctors were unnerved there by the amount of weirdness that would take place.
Right.
Well, maybe, just maybe, Jimmy, what was going on was that moment when I rounded the corner and there's the nurse and she looks surprised and sees me and takes off running, maybe back in 1950, she walked around the corner and there's this weird guy in a Metallica t-shirt standing in the hallway.
Right.
And he's kind of translucent. And to her, I was the ghost. To me, she's the ghost. When all it is that moment in time and space when that threadbare portion just rubs up against it right and you can see through it. And I think that might be a lot more of what we're dealing with, time slips, these threadbare aspects of time and space. And if you've got the right components, like granite, quartz, underwater current, and it could be creating this electromagnetic natural field, which, if I take a movie projector, right, Jimmy, and I project the movie and there's no screen, the picture doesn't not exist. It's there. It's just not bouncing off of anything. But if I drop a sheet of water down and you reflect it, you'll suddenly see the imagery. Well, I think if you've got the right geomagnetic principles, kind of like when you're driving on a hot road and you see those waves coming up and it looks like waves of water from the heat rising up, I think that you're giving a template to some of these locations for these moments to be seen through space and time. And you're just running into yourself and you're running into places. And that's why some people may hear themselves at home. They'll hear their own voice call out.
Well, all history is recorded. It's all in the ether, right? It's all there. And that would explain a lot. I've never quite looked at it that way, but that would explain a lot for what's going on in the South or the Civil War battlefields and the ghost running around. They may not actually be ghosts. It could be a recording, with the electromagnetic interference that's going on underneath the ground that is there. It could be
right. It's just creating that magnetic temporal portal, if you will. So you're seeing through that moment in time, and that's why they're seeing us. We're seeing them. And, I have John Sable, who's going to be my guest on Coast coming up, not this Saturday, but the following Saturday. And John is kind of a forensic archaeologist of paranormal activity. And he'll go to a place like Antietam, and he'll go get the roll call roster of the 52nd Battalion that was stationed there.
Right.
And he'll go out and he'll start talking in this commanding voice, and I want to speak to Lieutenant Daffodil, and blah, blah, blah. And he'll start getting EVP. And he's got some of the most amazing EVP. And he was the one that started to break that down for me, that there are all these layers. He said, he can go there and there's all this other activity, all this static going on. And what he's doing is tuning into one specific aspect of that paranormal to try to figure it out. And I've heard his recordings, and I'm hoping he brings them for Saturday, where at one point while he's doing this, you're hearing what sounds like cannon fodder, boom, boom, going on in the background. People as they're running across the field. It is the most disturbing and electrifying experience to hear this kind of audio coming back from these moments. So, Jeff Belanger, the author and researcher, says that he believes ghosts are history's way of reminding us where we've been. So we never forget the things that we've done and where we came from.
Yeah, even if it's an electromagnetic or some type of gravity magnetic interference of history, right? Of a time slip, still a ghost, still scary, right?
In a sense. Now the other aspect.
Hold on, I got to jump in. Did you say you're hosting Coast the weekend after next?
I believe it's Saturday the 18th, I think. I'm not in front of my calendar right now.
Because I think I'm hosting that night.
Or maybe I'm on Friday.
I'm just messing with you, Dave. I'm just messing with you.
It could be. I'm not sitting in front of a calendar. I know it's coming up, though.
I had to take my jab, man. It was just too easy. You left it hanging out there. I wanted to ask you this. There are different approaches to, the way that TAPS handles things, and the way that Zach Bagans deals with things on his show too, as well. Both riveting. If there's a Ghost Adventures marathon, my family knows I'm checking out. Okay, I'm going to be there and maybe fall asleep in the living room watching Ghost Adventures. I'm addicted to it, love it. But are you really in complete darkness? I mean, like walking down Waverly's hallways and you can't see your hand in front of your face?
Yes. And that's what a lot of people forget, because you're seeing that eerie green glow.
Right.
And, a lot of people will ask, I've been on, I think, 7 episodes of Ghost Adventures. And they're like, why do you investigate at night? Why do we do it? Well, because it looks better for TV and honesty. That creepy green glow gives you that kind of claustrophobic effect, right? It's dark around the fringes. You're in the center light and you're seeing something. And so that's great for TV.
Well, it would
but truthfully, if the ghost of Elvis was seen walking through KFC at noon, I'm going to be there at noon, not at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Right. But isn't that scary for you? I mean, on a ghost hunt, knowing that you're walking down these, whether it's a hospital or a prison or a house, it doesn't matter. But if you're in the complete darkness, but you're there during the day and you see these creepy rooms, you see the paint peeling off of the wall, you know how scary it is. And now you're there at night in the complete darkness. Well, that's got to scare the bejesus out of you just right there. I would be terrified.
again, a lot of it is intent, and I'm not trying to sound like I've got this macho bravado. I've been freaked out plenty of times, but I'm going into it expecting, I'm in a haunted location. I'm in the dark. So I start to desensitize myself to those feels, or you're jittery and unnerved all the time. Plus, as I've been doing this for 11 years, now I'm not as easily impressed. It's kind of like when somebody gets an EVP, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Let's go back and try to get more. And they're like, but that was amazing. I'm like, yeah, that was cool. Why do you seem so complacent? I'm like, well, I've been doing this 11 years. I've heard a lot of EVP. That's cool. Let's get more. I want more. I want to have the deeper experience, the more freaky, the better, because, to me, that opens up so many doors of conversation, which I love to do. I love to consider all the angles. What does this mean? Where are we going? I'm trying to wrap my head around the fact why cemeteries are haunted. Why is Eastern State Penitentiary haunted? Why is a place like Waverly Hills Sanitarium or Rolling Hills Asylum haunted? Because the last place on earth you will find me, Jimmy Church, when I die is in a prison or in a hospital. I'll be in the Vikings cheerleaders locker room. I'll be somewhere naughty that I shouldn't be, right? Right. If I'm going to go, I'm going to go have fun when I'm haunting.
Right.
But I had a friend of mine who was an investigator, and she enlightened me to a really interesting concept, and I call it the Bay Theory. We were equally drinking each other under the table at an event at UNIVCon in Penn State when Ryan and those guys were still running those events. And we were talking about death, and I said, I'm terrified by the idea that we don't leave our bodies. Why are there ghosts in the cemetery? And she said, this is the way I see it. And she peeled the label off her Budweiser bottle. And she said, okay, this label, this represents all the icky part of us. It's the jealousy, the anger, the greed, the rage, the whatever. The bottle, when we die, is the essence of who we are. That's going to go wherever we need to go next. It's part of the healing process. What's left behind is this garbage. So it's the most base animal instinct. That's why we get these get out or rudimentary knocks or flickering of lights.
Right.
Because it's the most basic animal instinct. Then you think of where they're at. Well, if they died in this place and this is what they know and they come out of it and it's just this kind of ick of what we once were, maybe that's why it stays there, because it's kind of communing with the rest of the ick from the other spirits that are there. And it's a pack mentality at that point.
Well,
that really hit home for me.
Well, let me ask you this. Is seeing or not seeing ghosts, does that have something to do with how much you believe or not believe in ghosts?
That's a great question. And here's what I found, that there are people that have attended our events that the husband goes begrudgingly because the wife wants to go and she's got a crush on Zach and wants to see him in person. And he goes along knowing now he can go to Super Bowl in Vegas, right, with his buddies, because this is the trade-off.
Right.
And he ends up having the experience.
Right.
No interest in the paranormal. He's the one that runs into the sailor in the bottom of the Queen Mary. He's the one that gets feels like somebody's choking him in the hallway at the Warwick Days Inn. And, all of a sudden these people are having these experiences that had no interest in the paranormal. So I don't know that it's, always if you're more prone to believe, because I know a lot of believers. Look at how many Bigfoot investigators believe but have never seen one. Right. Never heard a knock, never heard a howl, but it doesn't stop them from wanting to. And then you've got your normal everyday Joe who's driving on the road and he sees Sasquatch walking across.
How do you, this is just Jimmy Church asking a very stupid question.
There are no stupid questions, Jimmy.
In the dark, how do you not fall down the stairs?
Well, I use lights when I get to places like stairways. First of all, your eyes start getting adjusted. I recommend to people, don't use your flashlight, because if you're swinging that flashlight around, you're going to create all kinds of remnants and false positives when you're trying to investigate anyway. Because if I'm walking behind you and you're taking a picture down the hall, Jimmy, and I swing my flashlight past you as you hit that button, suddenly my flashlight casts your shadow to the end of the hall. You take a picture and, man, you caught a shadow person.
Right.
Well, all it was your own shadow being cast down the hall in that split second that the flashlight passed you and you caught your own image. So I try to tell people, just let your eyes adjust. And then if you're going to use a flashlight, cup your hand around the end so you're giving out the smallest little modicum of light, and then use that to go downstairs. Do those kind of things. But don't expose the light fully, because your eyes are constantly trying to adjust in these low light settings and make sense of the darkness. And that's when I was at Waverly Hills Sanitarium on our first investigation there. We got all of our people. I have celebrities stationed on every floor, and they're off with their little group of 10 to 15, 20 people, and they're investigating for the night. And Tina is walking me down this dark, creepy hallway, and she goes, Schrader, turn off your flashlight. We're going to look for shadow people. And I kind of rolled my eyes, and I'm like, I know how the eyes work. I know in a low light setting, your eyes are constantly shifting, trying to drink in any light and make sense of it. And I'm just not real impressed with the whole idea of shadow people at this point. And she, we're like 8 steps in, and she goes, shh, look, Schrader, look. And she points to this doorway. Now, she's much smaller than I am. So not trying to be a jerk, but I lower my perspective to hers so I can see what she's seeing. And she kind of elbowed me and she goes, stop being a jerk. I go, no, I just want to see what you're seeing from your angle. And sure enough, up in the doorway, about 20, 30 feet away from us, there appeared to be this head and shoulders kind of bobbing back and forth in and out of the door like it was looking down the hall at us, and then it had ducked back into the room. And at first, my breath caught, and I'm like, what the hell am I looking at?
Right.
But then I could hear outside, and I'm remembering it's a full moon because everybody's excited about ghost hunting on a full moon. There's a breeze going on, and this was before Charlie and Tina put all the windows in on the side of the building.
Right.
So what we're seeing is I'm seeing a branch from a tree bobbing, and it's a shadow of a branch. And as soon as I realized that, that's exactly what I was looking at. I didn't want to be discourteous to my host, so I go, oh, yeah, that's cool, Tina. And as I look up and I start to walk down the hall, right in front of me, striding towards me, is a full 3-dimensional shadow figure.
That's what you get. You asked for that, Dave.
Right. And it walked through, its shoulders went through my shoulder. I wish I could say I tingled or I farted or sneezed or something, but nothing happened. I turned around and I could see this thing walking down the hall, and I go to Tina, I go, what the hell is that? And all of a sudden the whole hallway goes jet black. You cannot see the end of the hallway. She goes, well, that's Big Black. He's our resident big shadow person. And all of a sudden, boop, it's gone, and you can see the end of the hallway. And then I took on a totally different feel for shadow people of what it was we're looking at. So, when you see that and you're in these situations and you're in the dark, it was amazing. But the dark is great because it allows your eyes also, you're not being tricked by seeing everything else. You're not maybe missing out on the nuances. And one of the strange phenomena I've seen on some of these places are these almost sparkles that'll happen, like Tinkerbell farts. I mean, literally, you just see ping, and all of a sudden there's just sparks everywhere. And I've been there. I've had other people witness it with me, and I've seen it at the Queen Mary. I've seen it at Rolling Hills and Waverly Hills and at Eastern State Penitentiary. And they say that some of the experts believe that that's it trying to push its way through the veil, and it's creating the spark, kind of like a bunch of, when remember when you were a kid and you'd be underneath the blanket and it was cold outside and you got that static electricity, you run your hand along it and you see all the little lightning strikes go across your blankets.
Yep.
That's what this looked like. It was kind of like this, and it would be gone. So I was wondering if that was truly them traversing through this portal to visit us in our world, or to be heard or seen. So it's that kind of phenomena that then inspires me to get more excited about the work again and want to look into it.
Well, we're always going back to the possibility of this being EM, electronic, magnetic, maybe even gravity, certainly interdimensional. And I love the science side of this too as well. One day we're going to have these answers. Our guest tonight, Dave Schrader. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter, @JChurchRadio. Dave, what's your Twitter? Go.
@Darkness Radio.
@Darkness Radio. We'll be right back.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Hello, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And this is Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers. We're of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring 2 Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hardshell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The 2 full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129, and use the promo code JCRTWS, and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Teppy.
Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies.
I was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. I went from being able to work 14, 16 hours a day with no problem to where I could barely walk a block to the store. I went on to the phytonutrients about 6 months ago, and within a couple of months, my medical doctor had cut my prescriptions down in a little bit smaller dosage. The next time I went back a month later, I walked into the doctor's office and he says, "My gosh, what's happened to you? You don't even look like the same person." He looked at my legs and the swelling had gone down. My blood pressure was down. The venous stasis ulcers that I had had on my legs for the last 4 or 5 years because of the poor circulation were all healed, and I'm feeling far better.
The new challenge will allow you to receive 2 months of Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies free, and we'll even ship them to you free. Call now for details. Call 1-800-246-8751 or go online to balanceofnature.com. Use promo code TALK.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Dave Schrader. Beyond the Darkness. Darkness Dave is with us. Beyond the Darkness is on the Jericho Network, Podcast One. All the links are over at Jimmy Church Radio. Go click, check out Beyond the Darkness. Dave, I do want to get a little direct on a couple of things. Oh, by the way, I caught you on Beyond Reality with Jason Hawes. And I got to tell you, those guys, I was kind of pissed that they started the show, right? It's like, you guys are dominating TV. Go and enjoy it. Let us radio guys do our thing, right? But I got to tell you, that's a pretty good show. And those guys are really, really good. And I didn't want to like it because I love their TV show. But, let us keep radio to us. Those guys are doing a really, really good job over there.
Yeah, and they're opening up doors as well. Shows like Ghost Hunters is what really kind of got this whole boon going again here in the United States. So, if Jason can make a mark in radio and continue the conversation, I think that only benefits all of us. Because, again, some people will like what he has to say, some people won't, and they'll look for other alternatives to hear these stories. And that's where you and I and George and everybody else come in.
Yeah, that's so true. And you know what? And they do have Roto-Rooter right there on the website. So you gotta love that. I want to get direct. Here we have two different ways of ghost hunting with those two shows, Ghost Adventures and Ghost Hunters. Where I think that Jason and Grant, when he was on the show, and JV, that those guys are calm, cool, and collected, pragmatic, and don't jump to conclusions, right?
Right.
Many times I've seen them go, dude, thanks for inviting us out, but there was nothing here, right?
Right.
Okay? But and then Ghost Adventures with Zach is it's more of an aggressive style. Which one is the correct one?
I don't think there is a correct one. I mean, you got to understand, too, for TV, they couldn't just come out and clone Ghost Hunters. There had been other shows that came out and tried, and they didn't do well. So Paranormal State was kind of the next one after Ghost Hunters to make their mark. And there you had a younger group of college-age students and slightly older that were going out and investigating, and they were looking more into the darker side of the paranormal. And that was their niche. And then Ghost Adventures came along, and here you've got these, a couple of buddies that are into the paranormal and trying to seek their own answers. And they start going to places and having off the hook, activity. I think too that in a lot of places, and I think Jason and Grant will be the first to tell you, we've been in places together investigating where it's just one of those nights and everybody's flat. Nothing happens. The next night, we're all laughing and joking, and all hell breaks loose.
Right.
Your energy can totally dictate what's going on in the area as well. So, I think that Jason and Grant had their methodology, and it worked extremely well for them for 11, 12 seasons.
Right.
Then, Zach, Nick, Aaron, and now it's Zach, Aaron, Billy, and Jay. They have their take on it, and they're emotional guys, and they're excited by it, and they're freaked out by it, and they're fascinated by it. And I love, they're like little brothers to me. I love working. I'm one of the location scouts on that show. So I've helped give them quite a few of the locations over the last 3 or 4 years and have appeared on a number of the episodes. I like the energy they bring to it. But, you can find fault in all the shows with the way they do things. But that's because there's no doctrine for this is the way we investigate. This is the way it needs to be. There's no one line of investigation that people need to follow. It's, I think, what makes you most comfortable. And that's why they added members all the time, because each member brought different things to the game and they would get different responses.
What about the accusations that some things are staged?
Well, I know Ghost Hunters took a lot of beating for that.
Yes.
And there's quite a few videos out there that can lead you to believe that. And so did Most Haunted. You can go watch I think if you look up Yvette Fielding and table tipping, you'll see some of the images with her knee underneath the table, lifting the table up as they're doing this table tipping routine.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, because of the nature of the show, people are automatically going to assume that it's fake, especially your skeptic nation. Right. And I'm not against skeptics. I'm a skeptical believer.
You have to be.
I've had my own experiences, but I don't believe in everything I hear.
Right.
And I think that, every show has that controversy built automatically into it. And unfortunately, you've seen it, caught on Most Haunted. And there are some compelling videos out there from ghost hunters. But, again, I don't know, because it's taken it out of context. I don't know what they're using, how they edited the video down to make it look the way they did. And, the fact is, I know these guys. I know Jason and Grant and Steve and Dave Tango and Amy and Adam and so many of those guys. And of course, the guys from the Ghost Adventures crew. And I can tell you that many episodes I've done with them, I've never once seen them fake anything. As a matter of fact, I still stand by the fact there's an episode of Ghost Adventures called The Demon House in Seattle.
I've seen it. Right.
And I took them there. I was called in by a Seattle radio or news station. They said, would you look over this video and tell us what you think? And I said, it's intriguing, but I just think it's weird that everything happens off camera. It's not like you see the vase fly across the room on camera. It's always something throwing it from the other side of the room, but we never pan over to see who threw it.
Right.
So we had these kind of questions, but there was enough to be interesting. And I told Zach, I said, this could be a huge flop. This could be Geraldo's, Capone vaults where we go in and there's nothing, or it could be, a true mecca of paranormal activity. But for whatever reason, this guy really believes he's dealing with the demonic. So either way, he wants some answers. And Zach said, let's do it. And I want you to be a part of this since you brought this to our show. I said, all right. And he goes, would you investigate with us? And I said, sure. And we went in to do this. And man, as soon as you got there and you start immersing yourself in it, I was not impressed with it. And there's a 666 painted on the wall that looks like it was sponge painted. And, I thought that was funny in itself. I'm like, what demon is going to take the time to sponge paint a 666 on the wall? And he's deflected that, the guy Keith that owned the house, and it's not sponge painted. You look at it, it's got this kind of flecked sponge painting look to it. It just doesn't look natural. I mean, it looks like somebody was screwing around. And there was nothing. We didn't even get a dust orb in that episode.
Right.
And at the end of the day, Zach had a hard call to make. Do I put this episode out or do I pull it? And then he said, no, it's important because people should know we don't get everything. We don't get something everywhere we go. And it leaves the question open. If it truly is demonic, maybe it just didn't want to come out and play. Maybe it didn't like that we were there.
Where's the well, I was just sorry to jump in, but what's the most haunted place? What scares you? What location scares Dave Schrader?
Boy, that's tough again, because I've never put myself in a place where I felt that there was a dangerous haunting involved. I've gone to a few houses and where people have asked me to come in because their kids are being affected by something. And I've had talks with the kids. And sometimes, again, it's just getting them to look at things differently.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I get a call, Jimmy, and they say, I think I have a demon, I can stop them right there. Because what's the key word in what they just said?
Demon.
I think.
Well, yeah, I think. And demon, right?
Right. So if you have a demon, you're not going to think you have a demon. You will know you have a demon.
Right.
And, you know, I tell the one story. It's funny. The lady's like, I go, okay, so explain to me, why do you have a demon? She goes, well, I was sitting there one day and my grandmother's favorite plate flew off the wall and shattered. And I said, okay. She goes, yeah, my grandmother's favorite plate. I said, okay. I said, did it make like a 666 pattern on the floor?
Right.
No.
Right.
I said, did it make like a pentagram? No. I said, did the shards fly across the room and try to impale you? No. I said, well, what makes you think that that's a demon? Because it was my grandmother's favorite plate. And I was laughing. I say, I wonder, you know, in hell roll call that day when Satan's calling out roll call, you know, Jimmy, I want you to go start up crap in Iran and Jerusalem, you know, and Dave, I want you to go stir up politics between the Democrats and the Republicans, and you, Larry, go break a plate.
Right.
You know, just to me, that seems ridiculous that that's the demon's job that day, to go break grandma's plate.
Well, how do you explain? Because she's probably, and whenever I hear demon, it's usually a religious family, right? And that's the way that they're taking
Not
it.
always. A lot of the families that I'll talk to they have no religious affiliation at all.
And they go demon?
But they've watched the show.
Oh.
They've watched TV shows. So
I
that's why
gotcha.
they automatically assume, because it did something to, in their sense, hurt their feelings. You know, it tugged my hair. All right, well, if it's a demon, it's not going to tug your hair to get your attention. It's going to wrap its, talons around you and throw you across the room, which there are claims of that. And I know some people that I love very dearly that have had very, very violent attacks. So to me, that's demonic. But if you're getting a little tug on your hair or your sleeve, and sometimes I just talk to the kids in the family that are dealing with these issues, and I ask them, well, what's going on? Why is this? And I go, well, you know what? You're thinking that it's scary, but maybe that's all the energy they have, was to give you a little tug of the hair. Maybe if you just say, hey, it's okay, you can be here, but just don't play with my hair or don't touch me. And suddenly when they feel that they can have the power back, which I think is one of the most important things when it comes to dealing with the paranormal, we're also willing to give up our power. And if you go in with the intention that you're in charge, I've been doing this 11 years. I've been to sites all over the world and some of the creepiest, weirdest, darkest sites, and I don't bring anything home with me.
Right.
And, because I go in with a different intention. I don't go into it allowing these things to mess with me. The few times I've had some weird stuff start to look like it's going to happen around my house, I'm quick to deal with it. And that's it.
Would you? What about ghost hunting your own house? Have you done it? And would you recommend it?
No, I wouldn't. I've got, I joke around about this and I've talked about it on the radio. I have a ghost in my closet. And I have no doubt about this, Jimmy. It's not one of those kind of, I wonder, I know I have something living in my closet up in my room. There's no doubt in my mind.
Okay.
And I've seen, I'll be laying there. I've had friends that have spent the night that'll use my room and they're like, dude, shut that closet door. That thing gives me the creeps. What's in your closet? And I've heard people say that. I also I bought this really expensive, it was an old heavy wooden washboard. And it was on one corner of my closet up in the top rack. And one night I was cuddled up with my girlfriend laying there, and all of a sudden we hear wham really loud. And I jumped out of bed and I go in there, and this I'm talking like a 5-foot throw from one end of my closet to the other. It's laying on the floor, broken.
Oh, man.
So I'm like, wow. And then I've got a couple of cats, and the one day my cat goes stalking in there, and he's looking around like he's hesitant to go in the closet. And I'm watching TV, and the cat goes into the closet, and within seconds, the cat comes flying out of the closet as if you put your hands underneath its front legs and you're holding it up and threw it forward like a shot put. It came flying out backwards out of my closet, hit the ground, and my cat won't go into my closet anymore. So I have no doubt, but it could be that, I've got a couple of really creepy haunted dolls that I keep in that closet that people have given me. I've done that, but it doesn't interfere with me. It doesn't affect me. But I've also heard when I'm the only one at my house, my kids go away for the summer to go live with their mom for the summer. And there's been times I'm sitting here on the couch watching TV and I'll hear thump, 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 thump. Somebody's running across the upstairs.
No.
Oh yeah.
No.
Oh yeah. And I actually had two friends that were sitting here on the couch with me. We're watching it, and you hear thump, 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 thump. All of a sudden, all of our heads snap at the same time, because where my couch is positioned in my living room, you can see the staircase, you can see the end of the stairway going into the kitchen. And all of a sudden this short shadow figure comes running right down the stairs and into the living room, down, the other side of the dining room.
Right.
And we all jumped up and they're like, "Did you just see that?" I was like, "Yeah." And I said, "That's, I think, our resident ghost." And they're like, "Dude, that's freaky. What the hell was that?" And I said, "Well, it doesn't hurt us. It doesn't do anything. But I've laid out rules. I say, you leave my children alone. You can communicate with me. Just leave me alone when I'm in the bathroom. That's, although that's the only time you want it scared out of you. I don't want to find a ghost in my bathroom. But you can mess with me any other time. Leave me alone in the bathroom and don't mess with my kids." And I just don't have problems. So I think it's in the way you handle yourself and the intent. One of the creepiest experiences I've ever had was at the Palmer House Hotel, and we're doing an event coming up here in February. We're sold out on it, unfortunately, but we did an event. We're doing this mirror scrying. So we're doing the psychomantium, it's called.
Right.
And it's dark down there. And I had this gal she wanted to go down so bad and have an experience. And so many people were coming back with these profound moments. And she's like, "Dave, please just come down." I'm like, "No, you're supposed to do it alone. You can't have people distracting you or anything." And she goes, I want to go, but I can't go down by myself. So I finally relented and went down with her. And she's standing up on the dais looking into the mirror, and I'm kind of sitting behind her and off a little bit to the side. And there's just these two little flickering candles. And we're looking at the mirror, and I'm positioning myself so she can't see me, and I'm not distracting her. And I'm just watching. And all of a sudden, Jimmy, at the bottom of the mirror, this face pops up. Looks like a little kid, like a little boy, with like the Adam Rich 8 is Enough family haircut.
Right.
Pops up, looks at us through the bottom of the mirror and ducks. And at the same time, she goes, and she goes, "Did you see?" And I said, "The little boy." She goes, "Yes. What the hell was that?" And that unnerved me. And as we're sitting there doing this, the flickering lights in this dark room starts getting on me. So I had my glasses off, and I look off into the dark to let my eyes adjust off to my right. And I pivot my head back. And I notice the way that the candles are and the way she's standing in front of me, she's casting her own shadow behind her. And as I'm sitting there trying to wrap my head around this, Jimmy, I'm like, this shadow looks really weird, though. It almost looks three-dimensional. It doesn't just look like I'm seeing a shadow from behind her. And I kind of lean forward in my chair, and this thing bends at the waist and leans right down into my face, straight out of a horror movie, and then stands right back up.
Right after the boy's face.
No, that was a short time later.
Well,
so the
same
shadow
event.
behind her just leans down and looks at me and then stands right back up. And then I said, "We got to get out of here." And I flipped on the lights. That was one of the most unnerving and freaky moments. Of course, it didn't growl at me. It didn't claw me. It didn't scream at me or do anything weird. But I wasn't prepared. That was a totally new experience, and it freaked me out. So that one is one of the ones that chilled me. We're going back to the Belvoir Winery. And we're going to be doing that in July. And if any of your listeners are interested in joining us and getting out of the house and not just watching it on TV, but being a part of it, we're going to go to the Belvoir Winery, the Oddfellows Asylum out in Liberty, Missouri. And they can check darknessevents.com, and they'll see where we're going to be throughout the year. But that place has been crazy. I was down there with the SLS camera, and we're investigating in the basement by the morgue area. And there's a group of us, and this little woman standing next to me goes, "Dave, there's something behind us." And, I've been to enough of these events that the so-called sensitives on these events drive me crazy because they sense something and everybody's sensing something in a totally different place.
Right.
So I'm always probably a little too dismissive, but I go, "Oh, okay, well, let's check." So everybody's focused in front of us looking into the morgue area. I turn around with the SLS camera, and sure as hell, there's a figure standing inside the room. And I look at it, and I'm trying to make sense of what I'm looking at. And I kind of furrow my brow and look at it, and I go, "Can you raise your arm and let us know that you can see us?" And this thing raises its arm.
Oh, man.
And then it puts it down. And I go, "Did you guys see that?" I go, "Can you do that again so we can see it?" And the arm goes back up. And I go, "Perfect, just like that. Thank you." And it reacted immediately to us.
No, and when you use the SLS, you're able to, save these files, right?
Right.
And so when you go back and review them later, you know where everybody's standing in the room, right?
Right.
You know that.
Well, we're looking at the camera with the SLS. It's allowing you to see in the room, so I can see there's no physical form standing there.
Right.
It's just this figure, this mapped in stick figure. And what I'll do after the show tonight is I'll send you the link if you want to post it on your page or anything that people can go see it for themselves, the video I caught there. It's really kind of an intriguing, weird little piece of video.
And what does that tell you? I mean, because of the way that the SLS picks it up, what do you think you're actually seeing?
I don't know.
I know.
talking to Bill Chappell, who created it, he's not sure. I mean, the pinpoints of light need to see head, shoulders, knees, and toes to pick up a stick figure.
Right.
It has to see some kind of physical form, or it won't map it in. Sometimes it'll map up like a door frame, but then it immediately vanishes when you move the camera. And I had an experience at the Palmer House again in Lucy's room. And I had a friend of mine who was sitting in the chair across from Lucy's chair. And all of a sudden this figure maps in behind the chair and it walks around. This is one of the few pieces of video I have where it moves dramatically. It walks around in front of the chair and sits in the chair. And we're all sitting there looking at this empty chair and my friend sitting there. And I go, she's sitting there with you now. And she goes, I'm so glad that you're able to come here. She goes, I've had a very rough day, a couple of days. My grandmother just died before this trip. And as she says that, this stick figure leans forward and taps her leg like consoling her. And we're like, what are we watching?
Yeah, right.
Then another stick figure maps in behind her and behind the chair. And the stick figure sitting in the chair stands up and moves closer to my friend, either to get away from this thing or maybe to block from this other figure. This other figure steps out, and then Jimmy crawls up the wall and climbs under the overhang like a creepy Spider-Man looking figure and goes into the other room and then climbs back out again.
Oh, right on.
And we caught it all on video. That was chilling to me. That's when you get the holy beep moments.
Yeah. What does the SLS camera cost?
I'm not real sure. You'd have to go look on his website, and I know he's always making tweaks, but if you go to digitaldowsing.com.
Right.
digitaldowsing.com, you'll find it there. Or I think it's, I can't remember, Ghost, I can't remember his other short name, but digitaldowsing, DOWSING.com, Bill Chappell, and you'll find all of his products there that he works on. But he's got a lot of really cool, inventive equipment. What I love best about Bill is he takes all these theories we bandy about, that he hears from investigators around the globe, that they believe this is what's going on. So he builds equipment to test these parameters. Okay, if this is where EVP lives, let's record only in this spectrum. Or if this is where we're seeing it, let's look in this visual spectrum. Or if we're experiencing this, let's amp up the volume. And so they stop draining the batteries in our flashlight. Let's give them some other form of energy to bleed from. And he created the EM pump. So there's all these really kind of interesting and unique pieces of equipment. But he'll be the first to tell you he doesn't know that it's really ghosts. He doesn't know what we're dealing with. But he's fascinated by the prospect and will create the equipment to try to test these parameters and look at it with a hard-edged scientific approach. And the guy's got 30 years of engineering under his belt. He's one of the, he's still hired on retainer from a few different major organizations that need his abilities and skills because he's so good at what he does. So it's not like some nut in his basement, hot gluing circuits to a piece of wood. This guy's a full-on electrical engineer and knows what he's creating and how it should work. And there's times he says, Dave, I don't know how it's doing that. I don't know why it's doing that. I know what's going into it. I know what it should be doing, and that should not be doing that.
Yeah, the first time I saw the XCAM stuff, the SLS stuff, I'm like, this is cool, right? This I feel confident about, and I don't know much about how to use an H2. I've been around people that have used these things. I get what a digital recorder does, right? I understand that technology, but the SLS, it was one of those things where I just went, there's something going on here. And this is definitely technology worth looking into. Oh, you know what I wanted to ask you before the break is, sure. And by the way, you want to take some phone calls?
Yeah, certainly.
Okay, so we'll open up the phone lines in the next break, everybody. So just get ready for that. Is when it comes to scratches, because we were talking about demons and ghosts and the differences. When those types of manifestations happen. What's going? Is that demonic? Do ghosts scratch, or are these done by the self? And
I think a lot of it is ourselves doing it. Now I've been in some positions and places where I've seen it happen in front of my eyes. 3 raised welts will come up, but automatically people assume it's a demon because it's 3 marks. And I do want to address that. If you take your hand right now, and I encourage all of your listeners to do this, take your hand, put it on your arm, and scratch. You'll notice the only 3 fingers that hit are the 3 middle fingers. You catch the corner of a thumb and a part of a pinky nail. And unless you've got long pinky nails or a thumb, you're not going to really leave a mark. So, we're always, and if you had a video camera on yourself, you'd be amazed how many times you touch, scratch, and touch yourself throughout the day. And people just don't realize how often they do it. oh, but it's got 3. It must be demonic. I don't know where the rules are on that. Nobody's ever said that demons only have 3 talons. Plus, in my opinion, if a demon wants to get your attention, he's not just going to give you 3 little raised welts. He's going to do something to you much more vicious. So does it mean it was us, or does it mean that maybe a ghost was trying to get our attention? Possible. I just don't necessarily buy it. It's like the whole, it happened at 3 a.m. that makes it evil. It's mocking the Christ because Christ died at 3 p.m. and this is 3 a.m. And I often wonder, does ghosts, do spirits, stick with the daylight savings time? Do they know when these times happen? So, I just don't buy it. And things come in knocks of 3, so it's evil. Well, boy, the 70s taught us that if you knock 3 times on the ceiling, it's because you want me, right?
Right. Tony Orlando is here.
Right.
Well, have you been scratched?
I had one experience, and it was out in California, and I can't remember the name of it. It's on a college campus, and it's some little hospital there that they don't like to let you into.
Loma Linda.
No, not Loma Linda. I can't remember the name of it, though. I'm sure somebody will hit me up with it. But anyway, I was walking with Bill Murphy from the show Fact or Faked. And at one point, I went into the bathroom, take a leak. I come out, and I've got this scratch on my nose, and there's blood coming from it. And I look at Bill, and I go, what the hell? And he goes, dude, let me videotape and document this. I said, Bill, I can't do that. I was just walking around in dark rooms. I don't know that I didn't catch myself or scratch myself and cause this. I just can't do that. That'd be too weird for me. I'm not comfortable saying that that's evidence. And 2 minutes later, he looks at me and he goes, I wish you would have let me videotape it. And I said, why? He goes, go look in the mirror. You look in the mirror. There's not a scratch. There's not a drop of blood. Everything's gone.
Oh, man.
I have no clue what caused that, how it happened, what the hell occurred, but it was weird.
I forget what the show was. It was in the late 2000s, 2007, 2008, and there was a marathon on, and I fell asleep on the couch watching it. And the show, you don't have to say the name of it. I don't remember it, but you will. But everybody was always getting scratched, right? But I got to tell you, it allowed for the best nightmares that I've had in a long time, right?
Right.
Everybody running and screaming and getting scratched, and I got to tell you, it scared the crap out of me. So let's take a break right here. We'll open up the phone lines, and we'll take phone calls next with Dave Schrader, Darkness Dave. I want a nickname. Man. I want Darkness Jimmy doesn't work.
No,
it doesn't. We'll figure out something before the end of the show. Our guest tonight, Dave Schrader. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Your phone calls next. Stay with us.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
KGRA Radio. Intelligent talk.
You've probably heard about all the great benefits of goat milk soap, but did you know some companies take shortcuts? At Old New England Soap, we make our organic goat's milk soap using 36% goat's milk. That's 17% more than most others. Our bars are larger, so they last longer, producing lots of lather packed with vitamins. And our soap is a natural moisturizer that smooths dry and damaged skin. Order online at oldnesoap.com. That's oldnesoap.com. You've tried the rest. Now try the best. oldnesoap.com.
Water-based soaps on supermarket shelves use harsh chemical acids to break down dead skin cells. And that's just not good for you. At Old New England Soap, our soaps are made without chemical ingredients, contain no alcohol or petroleum products, and use 85% organic materials and carry the USDA's organic certification. Try some today. Go to oldnesoap.com. That's oldnesoap.com. oldnesoap.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on the smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
If you have sciatica, then you know all about the crippling pain that travels from your lower back down your leg when a spasm occurs. It's brutal. In fact, it's enough to take your breath away. Dr. Zhang's Sciatica Nerve Cream helps relieve persistent, shooting pains associated with the sciatic nerve in the lower back and legs. This natural, homeopathic cream contains the most potent ingredients to soothe even the most excruciating pain associated with sciatica. Stop the pain now. Ask for Dr. Zhang's Sciatica Nerve Cream at your local health food store or go online to trasknutrition.com.
Would you like relief from muscle pain, headaches, and discomfort to sleep better, have more energy during the day, and just feel naturally amazing? Fibromalic can help. Its blend of malic acid and magnesium can provide pain relief and comfort for those who experience fibromyalgia. It helps your body absorb more oxygen, and it works quickly for a significant reduction in pain within 48 hours, all without a prescription. Ask for Fibromalic at health and vitamin shops or shop fibromalic.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Tappy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
All right, welcome back, Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Dave Schrader. Beyond the Darkness. His event at the Palmer House this February 24th through the 26th is sold out. But the Oddfellow Asylum in Liberty, Missouri, July 22nd, 21st and 22nd is going to happen. And tickets and information are over at darknessradio.com. Just click on events, and it's right there. Somebody had just tweeted, are you talking about the Palmer House in Chicago?
No.
No.
Sauk Center, Minnesota. As a matter of fact, I think a year ago it was rated the #1 most haunted hotel in the United States on like USA Today or CNN.com, one of those two.
You know, and that isn't that funny? You're going to sell out the hotel, right? Everybody wants to.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a smaller hotel. But, yeah, we sold it out, and then we've got people who will be staying in other satellite hotels, but they're coming in for the talks and to investigate. I told George what we need to do is we need to pull all of us together, all of the different hosts from Coast, into a coast-to-coast conference where we all come in together with 4 or 5 of their top guests that they've had on the show and just have a weekend of fun with the listeners from Coast.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, that would fly just as long as you make it Tommy's idea, right? If you make it Tommy's idea, we can do whatever we want. I'm
all for it. I said to Tommy, I go, we should maybe look into doing this. I think he's up or at least interested in talking about it. So who knows? Maybe in the future we'll do a coast-to-coast event. We'll have a chance to all be together under one roof.
And it's Tommy's idea. So
that's right.
I just got this question here from TB. Has Dave, or will he be, at the Old Western State Hospital in Washington, rumored to be haunted?
New to me. Shoot me an email on it. I'd love to hear more about it. Dave@darknessradio.com is the best way to reach me. But no, I've never heard of it.
Okay, there you go. And next is this, and I just looked this up too during the break. Have you ever gone to or visited the Hagley Obelisk?
No, I have not.
Okay, yeah, look that one up too. I'll send that one out to you. Okay. That looks really interesting. Now, back to how do we know? And I think it's very important here to get a definition here. What is a demon? You know, and when are we concerned with that, or when is it a ghost?
You know, and we tackled this. It's funny you're bringing it up. We tackle this on tomorrow's Beyond the Darkness with Lloyd Auerbach.
Oh, yeah.
We go through ghost theory and discuss this. But, you know, as far as demons, truthfully, I think a demon is what you create of it, you know, and what you give it energy to be. You know, according to biblical scripture, demons are really just kind of here on earth to torment and create hell and tempt us to do stupid things. You know, their idea is to break us, oppress us, and possess us so that we hurt ourselves or one another, and that's kind of their win token. But, you know, Ghost Adventures guys, they like to go to places where there are all of these stories of demonic hauntings. So that's why we send them to those places, and we look for them. We look for very active, malevolent ghosts that are known to push, pull, punch, chop, you know, whatever, anything that's more aggressive in nature, to go in and try to figure out, why are they so pissed? What are they doing? And that's kind of the topic. I know the ghost hunters guys were, you know, they'll go and say, this doesn't seem haunted to us, but, you know, they'll be the first to tell you as well. Sometimes a place is hopping one day and dead the next, and you might not get it. And even though they were there for 3 or 4 days recording, sometimes the spirits just aren't in the mood to play.
And what about haunted dolls and these occupied dolls? Certainly the creepiest thing that you can think of. I mean, dolls freak me out from the word go as it is, right? But, you know, are you inviting issues into your house with bringing in, you know, somebody sells you a doll and says it's haunted? Are you asking for trouble? Are they actually haunted? Are they possessed? Is there something that is occupying?
Depends on your definition of haunted. You know, is it a ghost that's inside the doll? I don't believe that. I believe it may be the spirit or energy of something that at once owned that figure that you're picking up around it. You know, and again, that sounds strange to me because, again, you think, why would I be tied to a doll or to this or to that? We had Marianne Winkowski on our show.
Yep.
The original Ghost Whisperer.
Mm-hmm.
And it was during the height of the TV series, and we were chatting, and she took a call from a listener, and she goes, you have a dog, a small dog that'll jump up and scream or run away. And she goes, yeah, it happens all the time. She goes, yeah, there's an old man that comes in and kicks your dog. And this old man is attached to something you have in your garage. You bought it. I can't tell if it's like a tiller or a snowblower or a lawnmower, but it's some kind of push vehicle that you bought secondhand. And the lady's like, yes, we just bought this a couple months ago, and that's when all this activity. She goes, yeah, the old man's still attached to that. And I said, what the hell? You mean when I die, I'm stuck to my snowblower?
Right.
And she said, you know, to some people, that's their zen, going out and mowing the lawn. And that's the way it is with my dad. I wouldn't be surprised that when my dad passes someday, you'll see him out on his ghostly, you know, lawnmower riding around the backyard because he loves it. He'll go out and mow the yard twice a week because it's outdoors. He loves it. He'll smoke his cigars. He'll ride on his tractor. So I can totally see that being a possibility. You know, is it dark? I'm not sure. We did an event at Rolling Hills, and we were trying to raise money for the Rolling Hills Restoration Society, and we did a charity auction. And one of the things we auctioned off was an old doll that resided there. And Mark and Debbie Constantino agreed to do an EVP session with it and give the disc to the family. And the lady that ended up winning it spent like $250 for this big, creepy-looking doll. And Mark and Debbie took it to the room and did EVP with it. And he came back and he goes, all I can say is I'm glad I'm not taking this thing home. And he started laughing. And I handed the doll and the disc to the woman. She came down about an hour later with the doll in a bag, handed it back to me, and said, I don't want this in my home. Keep the money. I don't want this. And I'm like, why? She goes, those EVPs are horrific. And I don't want this. So Mark and Debbie ended up taking the doll and keeping the doll. And that was it. But it just, you know, but I'm pretty sure Mark and Debbie could have gotten an EVP from a ketchup bottle. So I think spirits are very opportunistic. And, you know, I was talking earlier about how they would get these EVP that are kind of aggressive. My friend Susan, she's sweet. She talks to ghosts like they're puppies. You know, she's like, can you light this up? Oh, you did a great job. Thank you so much. And we were at this castle in Victoria, Canada, where they used it for the X-Men movies as Xavier's mansion in a few of the movies. And it's known to be haunted. And everybody was off in all these other parts, and she was in the old cafeteria, and there's no ghost stories there. But she just felt drawn there, and she and her friend Kimberly went in and did an EVP session. And they got back some of the best Class A EVP I've ever heard. And they talked, and he was lighting up the K2 meter, responding to their questions. They weren't even paying attention to the recorders. They're just excited that the K2 meters are lighting up like a Christmas tree. And they play back the audio. And you could hear this male answering the questions. And at the end, she goes, well, I just want to thank you so much for your time. I know it must have been such a drain on you, but thank you so much. And very clearly, you hear this male voice. And remember, there are only 2 women sitting there. You hear this male voice go, the pleasure was all mine.
Oh, no.
And it was amazing to be right there and watch her pick up the recorder and play it back. And that's what we caught. So it's fascinating to me. But again, it was her. She did it a totally respectful, loving way. Mark and Debbie would be more aggressive, and they'd get more aggressive EVP. So it's the jury's out to me on what we're really getting. Who are we really communicating with?
Now, what about Robert the doll? I mean, I look at Robert the doll,
right,
and that is, well, that's horror. That's evil personified right there, man. That thing is evil.
Right.
What do you think?
I don't know. I'm not afraid of inanimate objects like that. So I took pictures without asking his permission 12 years ago. Nothing major befell me or my family, so I'm pretty safe on that. Again, I think it has a lot to do with your intention and what you believe. Just like with the Ouija board. So many people want to say the Ouija is evil. I think it is what you do. Most of us played with Ouija boards at a party, trying to get that girl to cuddle up a little closer or get the guy to protect you. And, you'd have these spooky moments. Well, if you go into it with these connotations, trying to dig up dark stuff and be creepy, I think that's what you're more likely to get. I don't know that you're necessarily getting it from ghosts or from your own psyche helping to move this. But I don't, the Ouija board is not inherently evil. It's no more evil than an SLS camera or an audio recorder. It just depends on how you use the tool.
And if we are living in a hologram universe, a holograph, it's fully digital. Does that mean ghosts are, defragged files on the hard drive?
And that's maybe a perfect way to look at it. That's another possibility. We talk about this, the Mandela effect is so rage in all conversations recently. We started doing shows on this years ago, calling it Who Brought Kirk Douglas Back from the Dead?
Right.
The idea that, so many of us have these false memories. Well, they're not false to me. I remember specifically when Kirk Douglas died. I remember this or I remember that. I remember the Berenstain Bears, not the Berenstain Bears. And I can recite to you why I remember it that way. And there are people with me that feel that same way. And what I've found interesting is in a lot of these people that are affected by the Mandela effect, many of them dealt with a near-death experience in their life. So I often wonder if we're global consciousness jumping from reality to reality, if there are these parallel universes and lives going on all at once, which may explain why suddenly you feel depressed and blue out of the blue for no reason. Maybe it's because, your person in an alternate reality next to you just lost somebody that they loved or lost their job or something got to them. And maybe you're kind of still part of that ripple effect and you're feeling the emotions of your alternate versions. And I know sometimes you're going to think I need to hit off the bong to go down these rabbit holes, but I do think that there might be more to this. And maybe that's why some people have these false memories. And whether you're talking about a holographic universe or what, they're collapsing in on each other from time to time. And there are these moments when we remember things one way very clearly that obviously are not that way. But how can a large portion of us remember it that way?
Well,
and others don't.
Yeah, well, okay. I'm confused about the Mandela effect because on its surface, it's like, whatever. Come on, guys, right? But I've got my own frigging issues with it. My memories are messing with me, right?
Sure.
And I'm just wondering if we're not onto something here.
Sure.
And
if it's an alternate life, and listen, we're supposed to live this long, steady, healthy life. What if Jimmy Church, 2 steps to the left, died in a car accident when he was 16, when you actually survived it. But that consciousness leapt over into this lifetime.
Right.
And carries on. So that's why you kind of have these memory pools of stuff that didn't take place because they did take place, just not in this timeline. And then when you almost drowned when you were 28, your consciousness took another step to the left. And now you're in a new, consciousness. And you will get that full, long life. But it's just a step to the left every time. You're moving up that ladder, and where your life has ended there, your consciousness continues on. And maybe that's why sometimes we have these memories or we have dreams that don't seem to fit, but they seem to be people we recognize or know, and we've never met. because we're bringing back those reflections of alternate realities.
That's exactly a great point. And I'll tell you, a reason why I think that there's something to it is because when we look at the possibility of time travel and going back and changing things in the past, but not able to change everything. You remember in 1984, right? In George Orwell's 1984, I forget his name, but his job was to listen to the Ministry of Truth, right? And they would change a fact, and his job was to go back and change everything in history, right? All the books, all this, and change it. But sometimes he would miss something, or he would wonder if. Well, that would change everybody's perspective, right? Well, in the Mandela effect, could that be what's going on here? Where it gets changed most of the way, but it's not, everything's not changed. Or in that timeline, it's a timeline bleeding over to the other, where some people remember it definitively one way, and then in the other timeline, and these timelines are so close together that they're sometimes bleeding into each other. I know, like you just said, I just ripped a bong hit, and
I'm with you though.
But
I follow where you're going with that.
Right.
It's kind of along the lines of, I believe that we do time travel, and I believe that we can affect our past. Have you ever, not even have you, I know we've all done it. You've done something incredibly stupid, and you spend years thinking about it. And sometimes you lie awake at night going, God, why didn't I do this instead of that? If I just would have, sat out that game instead of playing it, I wouldn't have blown out my knee. I wouldn't have ruined my college football career. Right. And then you remember that day beforehand, you kept hearing like this voice going, no, Jimmy, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't go there. Don't do it. And you're like, God, stop being such a wuss, Jimmy. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And you go do it and you get hurt. And you think, damn it. If I wouldn't have. And that really threw my life into a totally different curve. And I wonder if we are psychologically time traveling. And if those resounding, screaming voices in our head is us from the future reminiscing, commiserating about this and trying to alter what happened in the past. Because how many times have you done that and then did it anyway and you end up paying for it? And then there's other times you do it and then you don't do it, but you'll never really notice what that hiccup is because you didn't take that path this time.
Well, a classic example of that really is deja vu, right?
Right.
Deja vu is time travel. I don't care what anybody. That's the only way you have been here in the future, because now you're here in this event now, and you know what's about to happen because you've experienced it already from the future, and it's coming back. Again, I feel like I did just rip a bong hit. Let's go to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Say hi to Dave Schrader.
Hi, Dave. And
hi,
Jimmy. Hi. I just wanted to touch on a subject I don't know if you got into, and it involves an event that happened to me. I just remembered. It was poltergeists and how they're able to do what they do. Well, one day it was a nice summer day. I'm watching TV in the lazy boy. The window's open. I'm in the country. It's quiet. I'm the only one in the house, and my father kept saying he'd hear a ball bouncing up in the room above us, and he would never, get into. I'd try to pick his brain to find out more about it, and he wouldn't go into it. But anyway, so I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I hear this boom. Well, and if you took a billiard ball and threw as hard as you can on a wooden floor,
right?
And it went boom, 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 boom. Incrementally got faster, and I went up to the room, and there's no ball. There's no way to bounce a ball. There's a bed in the middle of the room, rug on the floor.
Right.
So, and of course, I just said, cut it out. I'm trying to watch TV. I don't know what I was talking to or why it happened or what. Anyway.
Right.
So how do it's just weird. How do they create stuff like that, and what is it?
Well, and maybe that room has always had a bed in there with a carpet, but what we're not looking at is that in the future, 20 years down the line, the next family that owns it, that kid's up there in his room and they've pulled it out and they've got hardwood floors in there now, and his bed's pushed up against the wall, and he's got his bocce ball and it falls off the top bunk and boom, 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 boom. So a lot of people automatically want to assume a haunting has to have taken place from the past. I think that in that case, since everything is existing at once, much like I mentioned at the beginning of the show with the book, everything in that place has always existed. I think maybe what you heard was something of yet to come, something that could happen many years after you're no longer here Matrix, or living in that house.
Yeah, like, a future residual.
Right.
Huh.
Very interesting. Yeah, and thank you for the phone call on that. That was a great question. What's your name?
Oh, it's Jim from New York.
Thank you, Jim. Great phone call. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks.
What if when we were talking about the book, and that's a really great example of that, but also the residual stuff that is happening. Could it just be, for example, Rita and I about 6 months ago, we're in our bedroom, and off to the side I want to explain this correctly. From the foot of our bed to the left is the entrance to the bathroom, the master bath, right? And then to the left of that is another door for the toilet itself, right? That's enclosed, right? Okay. So we're lying in bed, and the toilet seat falls down. And I'm telling you, it can't do it by itself. It just cannot. Right. It cannot. And Rita and I, and it was so loud too, just look at each other, and we know what just happened, and we know that, we're both in bed. Neither of us are in the bathroom, right? Now, that really happened. Now, I can't explain that. I just can't explain it. And if
it was just a ghost EVPing. See what I did there?
Dave will be here all week, folks. Try the veal. The veal.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, so when you hear a story like that, certainly coming from me, because I try to be as pragmatic as possible, but sure. I'm just telling you, I'm not crazy. That's the way it happened. And you hear something like that. What's your response?
It reminds me of the St. James Hotel up in Red Wing, Minnesota. I went up there 4th of July a year ago, and they had said, well, why don't you stay here in our haunted room, and maybe you guys could do an event here in the future. So I stayed in the haunted room, and it was this woman that used to own it, and very lovely woman that owned the hotel, but she kind of ran it with an iron fist, and I was using her room. And I got up, lifted the toilet seat. I was the only one there, took a leak, went back and got into bed, and then I came back in a little bit later, brushed my teeth. I put the toilet seat down because if I have to go in the middle of the night, I don't want to spray all over. I'll just go down and sit and be, the cleanest possible way to do this. And set the toilet seat down. I come back a little bit later in the night and I go to sit, and the toilet seat's up. And I'm like, well, what the hell's going on?
Like,
why is the seat up? And I end up putting the seat back down, and then I get up in the morning again, going, and the toilet seat's up again. And then I'm looking all over for my shoes, which the bed in her room is high. I kicked my shoes off, and it fell next to the bed. I couldn't find my shoes for the life of me till I looked down the hall. There's from where the bed is all the way down to the hall to where the front door is a bit of a hike. My two shoes are sitting side by side by the front door, pointing out.
You got to love that. I mean,
yeah,
you got
to. What are you trying to tell me, honey? You want me out and make sure to lift the toilet seat?
You got to just sit back and enjoy the moment when that happens. Yeah. Let's take another call. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Say hi to Dave Schrader.
Hello, Dave Schrader.
Hello.
I mean, I've been listening to you for a long time since you were doing darkness and stuff. I'm wondering, in your investigations, have you ever ran across anybody like occultists or anybody like that? And if you did any of their stuff ever work? Like seances, rituals, drawing circles, stuff like that?
Oh, good. Great. What's your name? Great question.
It's Joe.
Thank you.
Joe Roop. You were on
Oh, hi, Joe.
Talked to me the other day.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Joe.
Joe, I've investigated with all types, many different belief systems, theologies, and sometimes things work, sometimes they don't. And I've been with some Wiccan ghost hunters where they're doing their pentagrams and this and that to try to conjure or to protect, and nothing's happening. And then I've gone with others that do the same thing, and they're, we're hearing footsteps running up and down the hall, things are banging in the wall. So it just kind of depends on the person. But I've pretty much run the gambit of seeing it all, or at least I think I have. And I'm always open to seeing more and different. But the occultist, depending on what they're into, I don't always, want to put myself in those situations, but it just depends on what their belief system is. And, does it jive with mine? Am I cool with being in that situation? Because I feel like if I'm kind of anti what they're doing, it probably is going to help dampen whatever they're trying to do, because I don't want to be witness to it or be a part of it. So I've got to make sure that I'm open to the idea of what they're doing.
Is it always going to be dark? I mean, that's what we tie with those types of groups, and we hear that, and we immediately go to the dark side. Are they inviting?
No, there's a lot of Wiccans that are very nice, light, white people, and I don't mean white as in skin tone. I mean as in the type of work that they do, white magic. There's good and bad in everyone, as we heard from Stevie Wonder and Paul McCartney. There's you can. It just depends on how you do what you do and what your intent is going into it. I've never been knocked down by the way one person does things, except for Mark and Debbie, because of how proficient they were at getting EVP everywhere. I was more intrigued with them and how it was going rather than the ghostly side of it too, because it fascinated me.
Well, and they also, what really impressed me about them is their ability to hear it too as well, because not you listen to some of these files and it's a lot of work to locate. You have to listen. I mean, I've got hours and hours and hours of stuff that I haven't gone back and listened to, because if you do a 4-hour, investigation with 4 different recorders, well, okay, that's 16 hours of painstaking listening, right? That's why
I do short burst EVPs. I'll ask 5 or 10 questions and then go back and immediately play back the EVP. And if I have nothing on it, I erase it, and then I go that way, because, also I don't want to run it and ask all these questions and get some kind of responses that I don't hear for another week until I'm reviewing it. Because if I can open up a dialogue, I want to have that conversation on the spot.
Yeah, that's when Zach or Jason or Grant, those guys, okay, we've installed 56 cameras, right? I'm like, dude, somebody's got to go back and review all of that, listen and watch this video. It's absolutely painstaking. Hey, Dave, can I get you to hang on for a few minutes of overtime after this break?
Sure, whatever you want. I'm here for you.
Okay, I'm having a great time, because the one thing that we haven't discussed tonight, and I've got to get your take on this, is Slender Man. Now, don't even respond. Don't you hold it right there, because I know you want to. Exactly. All right. Our guest tonight, Dave Schrader. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Beyond the Darkness has come to Fade to Black. We'll be right back with Dave Schrader. I got to find out about Slender Man. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Listen to my boy, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies.
I had gout in both my knees, and it's gone.
Well, I'm pretty stupid. I should have ordered it 15 years ago. Best thing I ever got in my... It's the most effective product that I've ever bought in my life.
He had eczema on his hand, and it cracked for years. He did anything from doctor, every cream, everything. And 3 months on the veggies and fruit, it was gone.
They're just awesome. They keep asking me, what am I doing? I told them what I did with my cholesterol. I had the blood test, right? And it went down 100 points. 262, now it's 162. Everything is just perfect.
Call now to find out how to get your free month's supply of Balance of Nature.
Call 800-2468-751. That's 800-2468-751. Call now, 800-2468-751. Or go online to balanceofnature.com.
Use promo code TSL.
Would odors, mold, and mildew describe your basement or crawl space? It doesn't have to be that way. Transform them into a fresh, healthy, usable one with the technologically advanced Wave Moisture Control Units. The computerized operation maximizes moisture control and also expels harmful radon, combustion gases, and numerous other pollutants. Dehumidifiers are old technology that do nothing for air quality and waste energy. Wave units are intelligent, self-monitoring, do not need maintenance, and will save you hundreds in electricity. Wave units are still running effectively over 15 years. They've been tested and installed in public and military housing and by property managers nationwide. Buy a unit now, and if your home is not fresher and drier, you can return it for a full refund for up to 12 months. What have you got to lose? Call now. 1-888-618-WAVE. 1-888-618-WAVE. Or visit mydryhome.com. That's mydryhome.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring 2 Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hardshell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The 2 full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129, and use the promo code JCRTWS, and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Teppy.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. Heading into a little overtime with Dave Schrader in this portion of the show. Overtime is brought to you by Life Change Tea. Just go right now by clicking on the banners over at jimmychurchradio.com. Forgetthetea.com. Just mention Jimmy when you order over the phone or online, and you will get yourself some free shipping because you know Dave Schrader. That's all you got to do. You just got to drop Schrader's name. Dave, a couple of quick questions before we get to Slender Man.
Sure.
Stone tape. What do you think about that ghosts are recorded into stones and are not necessarily ghosts, that those events are being played back through stone?
You know, there's a good documentary called The Stanley Effect, and I think if you go to ghosttown.tv, you can find ways to watch it or buy it there. And it talks about that, and I can never remember it. I know it's not the gosh, I can't remember the stupid word now. A piezoelectric phenomena, and it talks about kind of the rocks that record. And I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if it's things that work in conjunction: granite, quartz, limestone, and an underwater current. I don't know if it's multiple things like that. I know in a lot of the older houses, when they've removed the old copper piping, the house seems to settle down where it comes to paranormal. They replace the copper piping with PVC and everything, and that changes. So could it be the way the static is being created? Because from what I've been told, when water's rushing through the old copper piping, it can create a static barrier as well. So, again, it's all out there. There's really no way to determine. I don't know any scientific protocol to measure. It's kind of like, people have told me they've taken crystals into haunted locations, and the crystals will get all milky and gross, and then they have to go soak it in salt water in the sun to clear them again. And I thought, well, if there's a change, if that crystal was crystal clear and is now misty and cloudy, there should be something that you would be able to test, because that means some kind of reaction took place. And why has nobody taken a subsection of a crystal that's changed colors or forms to see what that is? But, again, it takes money, and a lot of people just don't have the money to dump into doing real scientific work on this stuff.
Slender Man. It's okay. I'm just going to say this right now. Slender Man scares me. All right. It just does. And I went through, Dave, a whole Slender Man phase where I was listening to the stories, and I would go to sleep at night listening to the Slender Man stuff, and I could see how you could manifest this, right? Your brain is strong, right? And if you want to create something like this, it is possible. As you started to hear the Slender Man stories, I know you've looked into it, but is it possible to manifest this and make it real?
We just did a show a week ago with Joshua P. Warren talking about tulpas and thought forms.
Right.
And, we discussed part of the Slender Man phenomena with that. We did a show prior to that about Slender Man. And looking into this character, what I found really intriguing was this was created for an internet contest to create a creature that would be freaky and weird. And it was an internet meme and a kind of an internet creation. But as we started doing more research into it, we realized that there are forms of this Slender Man creature that have existed in many different belief systems, religions, cultures. This tall, thin man with no face. A lot of them say he's like spider-like legs that fold out of his back. So I've talked on my show and a few other shows, it reminds me of Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Right.
When he redid the movie and reimagined Freddy Krueger, not the new Nightmare on Elm Street with Jackie Earle Haley playing it, but the final Robert Englund movie of Freddy, when the idea was that Wes Craven and all the people from the original movie start getting haunted by this demonic presence that looks kind of like a creepier version of Freddy. He says that this demon always existed, and it took form as Freddy, and it delighted in the energy and attention that it got when Freddy Krueger, the character, existed. And I thought, well, that's a really cool take in a movie. That's a really unique way to look at this thing, that he gave life to something, or did something already exist? And when he put pen to paper and created Freddy Krueger, all it did was reignite that creature into existence. So, maybe Slender Man has always existed, and it wasn't an internet meme. And what's the old saying, that the biggest trick that the devil will play on us is to convince us that he doesn't exist, and that these things have always been there, will always be there, but they resurface from time to time. I've got a friend of mine who we talked about this on one of the very first episodes of Darkness Radio. She was driving down the road with her husband, and they got to an intersection, a T in the road, and this car came rolling through, and the guy in the seat turned and looked at them, and he had no face. It was just like a skin flap.
Oh, man.
No eyes, no mouth, no nose, and it just rolled through the intersection, and the two of them were like, what the hell was that?
Right.
So they went off to their party, and on their way back home, they got to that exact same intersection, and a truck came screaming out of the way and careened into them and damn near killed both of them.
Wow.
So they saw this faceless, creepy, tall man driving the car. There was another one here in Minnesota where a woman was at, I think, Caribou Coffee, and she went in, got her coffee like she did every morning. She went out to her car, and there's a guy standing there in a suit looking into her car. And she said, "Excuse me, can I help you?" And he turned to look at her, and he had no face. And she said she stood there frozen for a few seconds and then backed up slowly, went back into the restaurant, and she just stood there dumbfounded. And finally, one of the baristas said, "Ma'am, is everything okay?" She said, "There's a man by my car." And they're like, "What do you mean?" She goes, there's a man standing by my car looking in the window. And they said, "Oh, okay, well, let's go out." They go out there. There's nothing there.
Of course.
She gets in her car, drives. She's driving to work that day. She runs into this huge traffic jam. ties her up for a while. When she gets up there, she finds out and talks to one of the cops on the site. What happened? There was this huge accident. He tells her what time it was. Had she gotten in the car and driven, she would have probably been in that accident because that was right around the time in the intersection that she always crossed that way to get to work.
Yeah, that's
so did this thing freak her out to stop her?
Right.
Was it a harbinger? Was it a warning? But it was a faceless, creepy, tall man standing there looking in her window.
Could be a relative from the future coming back, knowing about all of that comes into play, right?
Sure.
All right, we've got time for one last phone call. Let's go ahead and do this. Say hi to Dave Schrader. Who's calling? You're live. 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, hi, Jimmy. I'm a big fan of Dave Schrader, and I was wondering if he's single. Well, thank you. That's so embarrassing. Man. Can't believe that call got in, but thank you.
Well, I still have the line open. Are you there? That's what I get for leaving.
It's Slender Man.
Yeah, leaving somebody on hold for that long because now they've gone, to the bathroom and they're going to come back.
Have you ever come out to the call, Jimmy? I've done that before. Have you ever you go to live call and you're like, all right, caller, you're on the air, and you hear.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It happened to me once. It did. And it's my own fault. I try to bring in the calls right away because of that. And it's embarrassing. Plus, we run on a 20-second delay here, not a 7-second. We're on a 20-second delay. So watch this. See, now they're listening to me probably, and they've run back in. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Oh, okay, that's it.
I want to eat your soul.
Man, and see, and with Slender Man, because of the internet side of things, where we are dealing again with electricity and EM and the power of the brains and the conscious and everybody being connected, throughout the world. We're talking about, 1 billion people thinking about Slender Man at the same time.
Right.
Things are just going to happen. And that's why I think Slender Man is real.
Well, you bring that up. There are people that have had visions of the Easter Bunny and Santa. They've physically seen the human manifestations of these that will vanish or do something. And again, it's always around those holidays. Is it because there are so many people focused on it? Is it because there's so much intent put on it? Even people that have no belief system in any of that have seen and witnessed these creatures. I believe our consciousness has a really strong ability to create. And I think that we do create a lot of the world that we believe in. And if we, and that's why I think it's important, and I'll leave you with this message for you and your listeners, Jimmy, we got to be careful, treat ourselves right, because all the negative talk and chatter we say to ourselves, and we're not worth it, and we're ugly, or we're fat, or we're stupid, all of those words just seem like throwaway words at the moment, but they're manifesting and creating a reality that you're setting in stone. And when I've taken a step back and I just let life happen, I've had some of the most extraordinary and amazing experiences in my life that had I thought about it, I'm sure I would have talked myself out of, or I would have convinced myself I'm too stupid, too ugly, too whatever to let it occur.
Right.
And that's why we, as humans, we got to just learn to treat each other better and start with ourselves, give ourselves more respect and love and adoration. And it doesn't matter. Other people's visions of us do not build our self-worth. We're worth much more than they'll ever give us credit for. And you have to start believing in yourself, because once you do that, you can be unstoppable. And I've seen it happen in my life. I've seen it happen in other people's lives. People will look at a celebrity or a Donald Trump and they go, how did this person get to this point? Because they believed that this is where they belong.
Well, I want to thank you, first off, for not only coming on tonight, but now you have tasted live radio once again, and now you know what it's like to stay up late. So now, tell everybody what's the best way to get to the podcast, when and how
Big
to access
party
it.
at my house. Everybody just show on up. Best way to find us, you can get the Podcast One application on your smartphones and just listen to us from there. You can also go to podcastone.com. We're Beyond the Darkness. Or you can go to iTunes and look up Beyond the Darkness. And if you listen to us on iTunes, do me a big favor, rate and review. Every time you rate and review our show, it helps push us out to a bigger, broader audience. More people hear about us, find out about us, and it goes a long way to help keep the best in paranormal talk radio moving forward. So again, iTunes, Beyond the Darkness, or at podcastone.com, Beyond the Darkness. And it's great and free and easy to subscribe to and listen to and take along with you on the road.
And who do you have coming up as guest?
We have tomorrow, we're going to be talking with Lloyd Auerbach, and we're going to talk about the theory of ghosts and go a little bit deeper into the stuff we were just discussing. A little later on in the week, Dark Waters is going to join us, and he's got some really creepy stories that he's been collecting. He's going to share with us. He does these kind of theater of the mind little specials, and we're going to air that on Friday. Thursday, we've got Stalked in the Woods. We've got this story of a gentleman who's been dealing with a very aggressive Bigfoot situation. So that's what we've got going on this week on the show. And again, they could find us at Beyond the Darkness, or just visit us at darknessradio.com. And there you can listen to the last 3 episodes. Right on the front page, you can find our events. You can find all the information about us and our guests, and find out the best way to find out what's going on with us there. And then I'll be hosting Coast to Coast in a week, and we'll be talking with John Sable about forensic archaeology ghost hunting. And it's a fascinating topic. I think listeners are going to absolutely love it, and the EVP will blow you away.
Now, check this out. If we do Ghost to Host, right, and we do the tour, which is a great idea, but one of us has got to stay back and host Coast to Coast. So one of us.
Not if we do it in California, do it in Long Beach at the Queen Mary, and then you're right there near the studios. So we could either do a live remote from the Queen Mary, or I think Coast has done that before. Otherwise, one of us can go back to the studio that night and do the show.
It'll be the low man on the totem pole. It'll be me. So,
no, I don't think so.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dave. You are the very best, man. And we got to do this again really soon.
Please, I'm always around. Just give me a call.
Thank you so much, Dave. Dave Schrader. Yeah, thank you so much. Dave Schrader, everybody. It's very simple. darknessradio.com. The links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Dave is the very best. Thank you so much. It's so cool for me to have another host on the show, because it just makes it just easy and fun. Not only for me, but for all of you. Thank you, Dave. This is Fade to Black. I'm going to take a quick break, and I'll come back with some news, and we'll wrap things up.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in, and then roasted to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hi, folks. In a world of GMO, genetically modified organisms, that is, chemicals, processed foods, and a healthcare system that's unraveling like a cheap suit, it's time to prepare. God created herbs, and herbs help man. Our body can heal itself, just sometimes we need assistance. You need some help? GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Our mild detox is quite powerful with its unique blend of 8 different herbs. And if you're looking for more, our non-GMO supplements will help you with different needs you might have. Health should be a top priority. Take care of your health naturally. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Give your body a treat. Let the herbs do their thing naturally. Read all the testimonies on the website, GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Sickness and viruses are like intruders, and herbs are like warriors. Let the tea work for you. That's GetTheTea.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Chase Kletsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station, where the Fader-Knots rock.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter, @JChurchRadio. I want to thank Dave Schrader for coming in. I'm going to go rapid fire right now with all the news that you know nothing about, because I've got some crazy stuff. Just check this out. If you've hung out to the end of this show, right now, it's going to pay off in space. Are you ready? Astronomers scanning the skies just got a huge surprise, the biggest kind. They have discovered a gigantic galaxy orbiting our own, where none had been seen before. This is not a joke. It just came out of nowhere. Listen to this. So just how did the recently discovered Schrader 2 succeed to pull off this feat like a deer jumping out from the interstellar bushes of life? Even though the appearance may seem sudden, the Schrader 2 has been there all along. Of course it has. We just never saw it. Now that astronomers know it's there, though, there are a few other crushing facts that astronomers have discovered. First of all, we can't blame the galaxy's size for its relative insignificance. Schrader 2 is so massive that researchers have already identified it as the fourth largest galaxy orbiting our own. We can't even blame the distance either. Schrader 2's orbit around the Milky Way put it just precisely in our very own neighborhood. That being said, though, check this out. The question arises, how did we still not know where it was or that it was there? A new research paper published in the monthly Notices of Royal Astronomical Society found astronomers at the University of Cambridge has the answer for us. It turns out that regardless of being huge and close, Schrader 2 is also pretty dark. It's a dark galaxy. Actually, it's one of the faintest galaxies ever detected in the cosmos. That, along with some much perkier neighbors, that light up around it, let the galaxy that astronomers have named the Feeble Giant remain hidden from our eyes until now. How crazy is that? The fourth largest galaxy, period. And it's right here on the edge of the Milky Way. We didn't know it. Just when you think, on the edge of the Milky Way, we've seen everything, man. We've got Hubble, right? It's just an incredible discovery. Now, there may be some extraterrestrial dust on your roof. Now, listen to me. At least that's what scientists in Europe have found in Norway. Researchers discovered extraterrestrial dust particles, also known as micrometeorites, on rooftop debris. The material was analyzed and the findings were published in the journal Geology. Micrometeorites, which survive atmospheric entry and reach our planet's surface, are thought to include material from asteroids and comets. There was a popular belief that micrometeorites could be found on urban roofs. But now, it's true. Scientists have analyzed 500 micrometeorites collected among particles obtained from roof gutters in Oslo, Norway, and one from Paris by a group called the Project Stardust. Out of the collected material, check this out, which weighed a total of about 661 pounds. 48 of those particles turned out to be cosmic. How cool is that? It's on your roof right now, man. Right now. China is about to fly its first large passenger jet. Its first flight is going to be made in the first half of 2017. The plane is part of China's ambitious plan to challenge global aircraft makers and has reportedly completed almost all significant static and system integration tests, as well as the onboard systems installation. The twin-engined Comac C919 was unveiled last November at a rollout ceremony in Shanghai. The plane will carry up to 158 passengers with a range of 4,000 kilometers. The jet aims to compete with the Boeing 737 and the Airbus A320. And officially, Comac has received 570 orders from 23 different customers. I've seen the plane. It looks cool. I'm saying, look out, Boeing. Now, we just posted pictures of this over on our Facebook page, so you can just go over to Jimmy Church Radio on Facebook, because a soccer ball that was on the ill-fated launch of the Space Shuttle Challenger has made it to orbit 30 years later, thanks to a shared connection between one of the fallen astronauts and a current commander on the International Space Station. NASA astronaut Shane Kimbrough, the commander of the station's Expedition 50 crew, posted to Twitter a photo of the black and white ball floating in front of the windows in the orbiting laboratory's cupola. His post, and you have to see it, it's pretty cool, came less than a week after the anniversary of the January 28th, 1986 Challenger tragedy. It's an incredible photograph. Go and check it out. The soccer ball survived and made it to space. Well, all right, I got to do this. Some things just have to be spoken about. More than 10,000 websites on the dark web were knocked offline this past Friday after a hacker, associated with Anonymous, by the way, targeted an internet provider hosting child pornography. Visitors to those websites running on Freedom Hosting 2, that's the name of the service provider, Freedom Hosting 2, on February 3rd, and today is the 7th, so listen to me, saw a message explaining the hack, saying that it had taken down 10,613 sites. Included in the message was the calling card of Anonymous. We do not forgive. We do not forget. You should have expected us. The web host is responsible for around 1/5 of all websites on the dark web. Unbelievable. All right. Tomorrow, when we come on, I'm going to talk about the first functioning large-scale quantum computer, which is known as the Holy Grail of physics. It's a great story, and it is amazing. I want to thank Dave Schrader right now for coming on to Fade to Black. And we waited way too long for that kind of show. It was totally excellent. Thank you, Dave. DarknessRadio.com. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Camarion. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Mark D. Kovar, LJ3, Renee Jonas. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Fady by Dale. Webmaster is Drew, the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. Syndication is KGRA, The Planet. Thank you, Dave Schrader. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2016 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Until tomorrow night, Fader Night, John Rappaport and George Norrie, right here on Fade to Black. Everybody be safe. Go Beckley Teppy.